The Conquest of Grief by Samuel Arthur Campbell 1933. Comfort ye my people, saith your God. The Spirit of the Lord God is upon me, because the Lord hath anointed me to preach good tidings unto the meek, he hath sent me to bind up the brokenhearted, to proclaim liberty to the captives, and the opening of the prison to them that are bound, to appoint unto them that mourn in Zion, to give unto them beauty for ashes, the oil of joy for mourning, the garment of praise for the spirit of heaviness, that they might be called trees of righteousness, the planting of the Lord, that he might be glorified. Isaiah. Introduction. The sanctuary letters comprising this volume are prepared for one specific purpose, to bring consolation to sorrowing hearts, hope to the hopeless, and courage to the fearful. They present a wholesome, intelligent attitude toward that event in human experience called death, one which will have practical benefit in allaying grief, dread, and atheistic uncertainty. The form and style under which this material is presented are the products of several years of research and experiment by the writer. Literary values have been placed secondary to the central purpose of the work. The emotional, factual, concrete, and ideal are freely employed to attain desired ends. A thread of narrative runs through the pages, the true story of one who arose from the throes of grief through spiritual revelation and sustained that high position through reasoning and faith. In June 1929, the writer suffered a severe loss in the sudden passing of his mother. Their relationship had been one of unusual intimacy, and at first, the sense of grief seemed unbearable. Within a few hours after his happiness had been shattered by this invasion of death, there came to him the remarkable experience as told in letter 1 of this volume. In an instant, he seemed caught up into a higher, more spiritual view of life, in which he saw death as an unreality. He was literally healed of sorrow by a sudden, brief glimpse of spiritual reality, suggesting the new birth of biblical reference. Others among his loved ones also felt something of the experience and its benefits. Tears were dried, and in the very hour of their greatest trial, actual joy filled their hearts. Sanctuary letters. In the evening of the day of this experience, the writer set down a brief account of the event. He was still confused and uncertain as to the meaning of it all, but knew the results to him were deep and salutary. He felt his joy too great for him to contain and made a silent vow that he would devote his life to seeking understanding of the divine influence which had brought him peace and to sharing it with the world. In the months following, he set about determinedly to execute his vow. He withdrew from the business world, devoting all his time to study, research, and prayerful meditation. Nearly 700 volumes of books were perused as he sought the hidden bits of helpful corroboration which lay obscurely in their pages. Records of hundreds who have known moments of enlightenment akin to his were uncovered, and he gathered this material eagerly for use in his mission of healing. Wherever grief presented itself among those near him, he went forth to allay its pain, telling his treasured story and sharing the pearls of thought which were being revealed to him. Always, he was the student, noting the most effective manner and time in which to offer the consoling truths. Much of his time was spent in solitude in a Northwoods retreat which he had long shared with his mother. Wejimind, an Ojibwe word meaning mother, had been his endearing name for her, and now he named this forest refuge the Sanctuary of Wejimind in memory of her. This sanctuary became famed, in a limited circle, for its atmosphere of tranquility and peace. The wild creatures of the forest find in it a haven wherein they may live without fear of gun or trap. Not a tree is cut or scarred, not a flower plucked or carelessly trod, all is kept as God made it. Death and destruction in the name of bestial pleasure are forbidden in the sanctuary, and here, in the deep silences of unsoiled nature, he heard much of the truth he is seeking. Still yearning to give to all the spiritual blessedness which, through his efforts at understanding, was constantly flowing into him, the writer wrote many public and personal letters entrusted with a message of peace for heavy hearts. He sent them wherever he believed a helpful, spiritual thought might effect some measure of healing, sometimes to individuals, sometimes to publications for general benefit. To those who know them, letters from the sanctuary have come to symbolize consolation, joyousness, humility, and spiritual strength. It was in this manner that the name Sanctuary Letters, as a general title for all his writings, was gradually evolved. Work on the group of letters presented in this book continued through many months. They were not written in continuity, but each complete in itself, designed to meet a special need. Many copies in manuscript form were sent about the country to sorrowing ones, until the demand became so heavy that publication was necessary. Through his constant study of the problem, the writer learned much about the treatment of grief. Particularly, he discerned that it is not something impervious to intelligence and reason. Grief is the result of an erroneous way of thinking about life and death. Healing is attained by correcting these false conceptions. In the early hours of a great sorrow, it was found, a period of comparative stupor frequently descends upon the bereaved, and during this time, they are deaf to approach. Soon, however, eternal hope stirs in their breasts, and they reach forth for aid, at first seeking something emotionally inspiring of such spiritual order as to lift them to an entirely new view of life. It is then that the reading of A Moment with God is most effective, nourishing their hearts with hope and often corroborating kindred experiences of their own. In the days following, self-pity and weakening sympathy from well-meaning friends may compromise this spiritual fortitude, and the letters The Conquest of Grief and There Is No Death are prepared against this reaction. Letters 4 and 5, Death Hath No Torment and The Dead Are Here, were written to erase from thought the sad pictures of deathbed struggles and to stir realization of the fact that those who have passed on are yet capable of impressing those left behind with a profound degree of tangible companionship. With the passage of time, the intellect of the mourner seeks to understand the joyous intuitive beliefs of the heart. To gratify this inquisitive state of thought, immortality the promise of instinct and eternity the law are prepared. Heaven, the final letter, deals with the practical results obtained from applied idealism. It is not the writer's wish to offer any new creed or philosophy, but rather to render practical and usable the glorious truths which have been revealed to all ages. There is no mention of ghostly apparitions or occult magic in this work. It is built on common sense and factual experiences, coupled with tangible experiences on the spiritual plane of life. What this writer has done in working his own way through the morass of grief and fear, all may do. He gratefully acknowledges the valuable aid received from many authors, particularly from the works of Walt Whitman, Dr. R. M. Buck, Ralph Waldo Emerson, Lillian Whiting, Evelyn Underhill, Bishop Philip Brooks, Reverend James Freeman Clark, Sir James Jeans, Sir Arthur Eddington, and Dr. Robert McKenna. In joyous gratitude to God for his own growing understanding of the nature of life and the blessed happiness he has realized in his humble pursuit of truth, he commends these pages to all whose hearts are burdened and whose thoughts are confused. Contents: A Moment with God. 17. The Conquest of Grief. 31. There Is No Death. 43. Death Hath No Torment. 57. The Dead Are Here. 73. Immortality the Promise of Instinct. 87. Eternity the Law. 103. Heaven. 119. Concordata. Point 133. A Moment with God, an Experience. Proem. The dawn of spiritual consciousness, as described in the following pages, is not an uncommon experience among humankind. History and literature abound with references to it. Some thinkers believe it touches all people to varying degrees at some point in their lives. Many embrace it, reaping its blessings, while others, fearing it may be a hallucination, turn away. Yet those who open their hearts to it know, beyond doubt, that it is a foretaste of reality, a gift from a benevolent providence to ease their struggles against materialism. The triumph that was then in my soul, I can neither tell nor describe, I can only liken it to resurrection from the dead. Jacob Biman. A Moment with God, from a diary entry dated June 17, 1927. This hour, I remain captivated by the most extraordinary and glorious experience of my life. Words fail me as I search for a way to express my thoughts or find a familiar comparison to validate what has happened. It feels impossible to name, define, or describe today's sublime phenomenon, and equally challenging to convey it convincingly to another. Yet I know this, if all the woe, worry, sickness, sorrow, disease, and death that seem to define earthly existence were a gauntlet I had to endure to reach this heavenly moment, I would gladly face it for this unparalleled reward. Today bears its horror, Wedgemind is dead. What greater loss could imagination conjure? Yet, where I should be consumed by the agony of hopeless grief, my heart and soul overflow with unprecedented joy. Wedgemind lies now in a state I never dared envision, lest the thought drive me to madness. She is cold, lifeless, surrounded by a cascade of flowers sent by grieving, sympathetic hearts. Tears stream from the eyes of many who loved her, but I, who loved her most, sit with dry eyes and a secret joy in my heart. Yesterday, death meant oblivion to me. Today, I cannot write the word without enclosing it in quotation marks to signify its negation. It has lost its reality, it seems true, but it is not. That cold form amid the flowers of sympathy seems real, but it is not. Wedgemind is not dead, she is not that decaying shell returning to dust. This I know, though if asked how, I struggle to answer. The words of Walt Whitman echo in my mind, swiftly arose and spread around me the peace and knowledge that pass all the arguments of earth. I know because today I have lived a moment with God. What will the world think of my lack of grief? Will I be judged as unloving, heartless, or indifferent? If so, I will not be troubled. I will not indulge in self-pity or meaningless wailing to prove my love for Wedgemind. She knows, and I know that is all that matters. No one was ever loved more than Wedgemind. She was the cornerstone of our family's plans and joys. No kinder, gentler soul ever lived. She was a mother to an entire community, where the depressed and discouraged sought her first to find solace in her love, sympathy, and encouragement. The great and the humble adored her, united on the common ground of sincerity. Children turned to her when their small troubles broke their hearts, youth sought her guidance through life's perplexing questions, worldly men and women, guarded by habit, opened their hearts to her, speaking with a freedom that astonished and blessed them. The elderly found joy in her gentle philosophies, and the grief-stricken saw a higher realm through her eyes. Soldiers on battlefields reached for her inspiring letters through uncertain mails, and the wounded found renewed life in her tender touch. She was a sanctuary to all, rejecting only cowardice, carnality, and falsehood. Wedgemind, Ojibwe for mother, with what joy I recall her boundless goodness. It now seems she lived in the sublime state I glimpsed today. She dwelt apart from this world, yet tirelessly opposed its cruelties. I remember her welcoming a wayward youth into our home, gently guiding him back to the right path and sending him into the world with her respected endorsement. I see her in the bustling city streets, offering courteous, thoughtful words of encouragement at every opportunity. I recall her at home, wisely discussing social and political matters. "Conduct your life," she once wrote to me, "as though you were the model for all humankind." Most sacred is my memory of her in her northern woodland sanctuary, wandering through forest paths, bending to touch the delicate trillium, lifting her thoughts to the towering spruce, embracing the modest birch and balsam with her love, and peering through nature to spiritual depths few could follow. Birds, animals, and even trees seemed to understand her. Fear and ferocity had no place in this sanctuary. "Our dominion over the world is the dominion of love, not brutality," was her gentle creed. The forests and fields were her true home, she was but a pilgrim in the material world. Her deep love for nature earned her the name Wedgemind, Ojibwe for mother. For months, I saw her burdened by the weight of others' sorrows. Her empathy and sensitivity became so acute that they caused her constant pain. The cry of a child, the hungry chirp of a sparrow, or the whine of a dog wounded her deeply. She sought to shield every living creature with her vast, protective heart, and it weakened under the strain. Yet we never imagined she would leave us. Who is truly prepared for death, whether for themselves or those they love? No matter how dire the diagnosis, an unquenchable spark of hope persists, only to shatter like a grenade in the final moment, piercing the soul's core. We stood by Wedgemine's bedside, hopeful and trusting until her last breath, drawn as peacefully and sweetly as she had lived her entire life. Dead, wrote Byron, God, how much there is in that little word. What indescribable horror overwhelmed me when the doctor spoke that final verdict. Bitterness, rebellion, hopelessness, and dark thoughts flooded my mind. Visions of an empty future flashed before me. The realization crushed me like a dungeon's darkness and the weight of the sea. It felt like the end of happiness, reason, ambition, plans, everything. Little did I know that from this chaos would emerge an experience more glorious than any I could have imagined. I have always been philosophical, cherishing the wisdom of sages, but no insight came to me then. I faced the grim tasks of funeral preparations with as much courage as I could muster, to support those around me. That was barely 12 hours ago, yet now, inexplicably, I feel greater happiness than ever before. I have been lifted from that grim scene by hands not my own. Like Professor William James, I can pinpoint the very spot on the hilltop where this glorious moment arrived. My father and I were returning to the city after purchasing a plot in a quiet country cemetery, a provision we had not thought necessary, so untouched by calamity we felt. We were silent, almost sullen, wrestling inwardly with grief and bitterness. Suddenly, the car, the road, and the countryside glowed with a heavenly light. It was as if the weight of grief had cracked the walls of materiality, and a healing ray of heaven burst through. I saw no vision, heard no voice, but was flooded with a happiness unlike any worldly pleasure. Somehow, though I cannot explain how, Wedgemind was radiantly present in it all. Like Dante, my vision was greater than my speech, yet it was neither a vision nor visionary. I did not understand what was happening, but I knew it was reality. Walt Whitman's words rang in my mind as if spoken, the ocean filled with joy, the atmosphere all joy. Joy, joy, in freedom, worship, love. Joy in the ecstasy of life. Enough to merely be. Enough to breathe. Joy, joy. All over joy. In that moment, the pure essence of joy seemed to permeate the universe like the ether. What words can capture the wild ecstasy of that precious moment? I believe I held my breath throughout. I briefly questioned my sanity, then found instant assurance that this, and this alone, was sanity. I looked around. The world seemed to stand still. The car was motionless. The trees along the road shimmered with a luster beyond color. The landscape was adorned with a beauty surpassing anything I had ever seen. I was particularly struck by a small bird that flew from the road to a fence. Though distant and fleeting, it felt as if it were before my eyes, lingering vividly. I recall the brilliant markings of its plumage, which I might have called somber in another moment. I felt an overwhelming awareness of the omnipresence of life. It was as if the word had been etched in my heart, and I knew and saw nothing else. This experience felt external, hinging on looking outward, for I sensed that my grief stemmed from my own erroneous thoughts, a creation of my mind. I cannot say how long it lasted. Time seemed suspended, and this glimpse of reality bore no relation to it. The comfort it brought was supreme, like a cool breeze on a scorching day, though the metaphor falls short. In that moment, I saw that death is a deception, and grief was as impossible to me then as sin was to the master. I glanced at Father, and the greatest joy followed. His face radiated happiness. He, too, was living this sublime experience. I will never forget the heavenly expression on his face. I wondered if my own joy was as visible. We could not speak then, and later did so only with difficulty, for human language lacked words for our experience. Yet we shared the joy of corroboration, knowing with the slightest hint that our experiences were identical. Remarkably, it felt divinely natural, as if this moment were ordained in creation, not mysterious at all. That was not all. At home, a cousin awaited us, weary from a long drive. His sorrow for Wedgemind was deep, yet his face held a peculiar expression, as if he harbored thoughts he both wished and feared to share. He pulled me aside. "I have had an experience," he said, and with my understanding nod, he described sensations like ours, occurring at the same hour. Later, my sister approached me, her eyes wide with wonder, asking to speak privately. "Am I insane?" she asked. "Today, while doing housework, the strangest thing happened." She, too, recounted an experience nearly identical to ours, at the same hour. My brother, practical yet not materialistic, heard these accounts. He, too, had felt this strange influence. "I cannot grieve," he said, "and I cannot recall Mother as a person. It feels as if she was always spiritual and we are, too." What joy this corroboration brings! It validates the experience, freeing us to embrace its boundless benefits. It strengthens us to support friends who come to console us, only to falter and lean on us instead. As I write, the next room is filled with them. The Spirit is spreading among them. Praise God, I hear laughter. They do not know why this is possible, but I do. A measure of the glory and truth that shone upon us today is illuminating their hearts. These events may seem small in words, but they are immense in experience and profound in implication. They reveal the grandeur of the Creator's vision of life and universe, compared to our puny, inconsequential view. His plan holds infinity, eternity, and heaven, ours clings to finiteness, death, and hell. But his is true, and ours is false. The false must yield to the true, and this is death. The dissolution of a mistaken idea. At my side, I found a magazine. On its cover, in Wedgemine's handwriting, were instructions to see a certain page, written days before her death, as if by premonition she left this means to guide us, to mother us as she did in life. The page held an article by a noted writer, describing an experience like ours, likening the divine moment to a cascade of cool peace that soothed and enlightened his troubled mind. This description resonates. I recall others who spoke of such moments when I was unprepared to listen. Behind my indifference, today's revelations always existed. It took the pain of great loss to rouse me from my stupor. My joy soars ever higher. The wisdom of Emerson, Tolstoy, Whitman, Bergson, Tennyson, and Jesus storms my mind. Words once cocooned now transform into living truths. In this moment, I feel what Charles Bennett called the blessed consciousness of unutterable reality. With Dante, I exclaim, "O joy! O ineffable gladness! O life of love and peace! O riches secured without longing!" I will hold fast to this vision, and though tomorrow I may weep as Wedgemine's shadow is laid in earthly darkness, tears like those shed at a play I know is unreal, I will reach back through time to the one true thing I know, the blessed experience of today. Oh, that I might share this divine revelation with the grief-stricken hearts of the world. That I might gather the inspired wisdom of countless enlightened pens and present to the sorrowing evidence to dry their tears and bring radiant smiles. The Father cares for us. He speaks through myriad voices, yet though we have ears, we do not hear. My prayer is to bring some measure of this uplifting truth to those who stand with bowed heads and darkened minds. The conquest of grief pro-em humanity seems unprepared to dwell continuously in the pure realm of spiritual consciousness. The world is too much with us. Well-meaning friends, seeking to console, often reopen the heart's wounds with cliched sentimentalism, unleashing fresh torrents of tears. Grief has long been a cherished indulgence of the human race, its conventional grip not easily broken. Masquerading as love, it seeks to shake the bereaved from their spiritual resolve. When grief strikes anew, it is vital to see it for what it truly is, for, stripped of its false guise, it reveals a contemptible form that inspires its conquest. The Conquest of Grief, which follows, was outlined 3 months after A Moment with God. It recounts the writer's final struggle with grief and the resolute union of faith and reason to achieve lasting victory. Be free from grief not through insensibility like the irrational animals, nor through want of thought like the foolish, but like a man of virtue by having reason as the consolation of grief. Epictetus. The Conquest of Grief. From a diary entry dated September 17, 1929. The tides of time have washed in vain against the memory of my moment with God. 3 months of eventful days have passed since that blessed experience when reality briefly illuminated my consciousness. Yet it shines in my mind like an imperishable sun, dispelling the shadows of human fears and sorrows. Its truth grows clearer under trial. I feared that the routine, dreariness, and monotony of daily life might dim this memory, hardening my recollection until I dismissed it as a fleeting dream. But this has not happened. Instead, I feel born again. Though I have not recaptured the same intensity of spiritual insight, I remain connected to it, even as I stand in my own shadow. The benefits are profound. Everyday tasks are imbued with glory. I perceive new depths of beauty in all things and greater worth in all people. My existence feels vastly expanded, as if I've been freed from a prison's confines and released under boundless skies amidst endless forests. I liken it to a time when delirium once gripped me. In my fevered mind, I was in a prize ring, battered by foul blows and unfair treatment, jeered by a gloating crowd, with an opponent towering over me to claim victory. Viciousness and brutality surrounded me. Then the delirium passed, the nightmarish scene dissolved, and I found myself in the arms of love and tenderness. The faces that had seemed hostile were those of my dearest loved ones, smiling with kind sympathy. So it is with my awakening from materialism. I am not seeing new things but rather seeing creation more truly. As Scripture says, in a moment, in the twinkling of an eye, at the last trump, for the trumpet shall sound, and the dead shall be raised incorruptible, and we shall be changed. That captures it perfectly. I am not alone in this experience. It feels as though I've been unwittingly initiated into a celestial fellowship with countless members. I am led through unexpected paths to new friends who, as we grow acquainted, cautiously reveal shared thoughts and experiences. Old friends unveil deeper aspects of their nature I had never seen. As if by some mystic force, books fall into my hands, proving to be treasure troves of spiritual wisdom. I feel a new courage, more than mere bravery, for I sense the impotence of evil. It is less about enduring suffering and more about demonstrating dominion. True, there are moments of grief when I lose my divine resolve and feel like a victim of a materialistic, hostile world's torments. But these are brief lapses when my mind tires of its celestial heights. It is written that Jesus wept at the death of Lazarus, yet the Master fully knew the law of resurrection. I stumble briefly in the mire, then, with a sense of repentance and humility, reach through darkened thoughts to the glorious light I have glimpsed, clinging to it until the rays of the cosmos again flood my heart. Yesterday, grief claimed an hour, but in light of what followed, I believe this shadowy unreality can never again torment me. Was it not in Rider Haggett's She where the protagonist bathed a second time in the fires of immortality, only to find it reversed her eternal youth, dissolving her into nothingness before her lover's eyes? Grief met a similar fate before me today. I sought solitude to wallow in my misery. Gloomy thoughts invaded my yielding mind, and I bowed before them like a friendless, forsaken weakling. A sense of martyrdom crept over me, magnifying my woes and diminishing my blessings. Grief felt like an evil spirit, separate from me and from what I mourned, seizing this vulnerable moment to consume me. But as my soul withered in its grasp, rebellion stirred within me, fueled by the courage and strength born of my earlier experience. He who is resolute conquers grief, says Goethe. I held the relentless spectre at arm's length, and the light of that glorious moment of revelation shone upon it, a light that leaves no shadow for falsehood to hide in, and for the first time, I saw grief for what it truly is. I saw grief trailing through the ages, destroying lives, breaking hearts, and sowing despair. I saw its ignoble origins, as anthropologists describe, among primitive tribes enslaved to their animal instincts. They gathered around a fallen chief, tearing their hair, beating their breasts, and wailing not out of love for the lost, but out of selfish fear for their own fate, deprived of a leader and provider. Selfishness was grief's father, weakness its mother, and through all generations, it has thrived on these ancestral traits. I saw it among early civilizations emerging from barbarism into nascent culture, where it was deified. I witnessed their funeral processions, where mourners competed to display the greatest sorrow. They maimed horses to mimic sympathetic misery, placing mustard seeds in their nostrils to force tears. Kin screamed, tore their clothes, and mutilated themselves. Wives and servants were buried alive with the dead. I saw the burning pyres of India, where widows cast themselves into flames in the name of sorrowing love and holiness. I heard the maddening beat of tom-toms and the chants of all-night vigils driving the bereaved to madness. I saw the misery and death in building monumental tombs, where mourners enshrined their love and their pride. I saw the Middle Ages, where the bereaved, fearing their grief seemed inadequate, hired professional mourners skilled in theatrical displays. Throughout history, grief became glorified, ritualized, and competitive, undermining health, morals, ambitions, and souls, torturing the living and not reaching the dead. I recalled funerals from my childhood, where relatives and friends gathered to amplify tears with cruelly sentimental orations, casting disapproving glances at any hint of cheer. I saw mourners clad in black to advertise their sorrow, heard the mournful tolling of bells, and the trembling voices of clergy delivering long, heart-wrenching sermons. Above this endless procession floated the banner of selfishness. Thinkers have long condemned grief's selfishness. Far from being a troubling revelation, this makes its conquest easier. Grief is not sympathy for the departed, no imagined state of their existence justifies it. Even the extreme materialist's view that death is the annihilation of personality offers no cause for mourning. In that view, the departed is freed from a hopeless life, resting in oblivion, immune to sympathy. And if we accept the reasoned and revealed truth that has permeated great minds through the ages that death is a step in infinite growth, where is the cause for grief? As Scripture states, except a corn of wheat fall into the ground and die, it abideth alone, but if it die, it bringeth forth much fruit. Was my grief that hour any more virtuous than the pitiful farce of history? I know that she whom I mourn has not entered a state of misery. Why, then, do I grieve? Not for her, but because I am lonely, left, seemingly, to suffer, because she is gone, leaving empty chairs, beds, and rooms. This grief is not for my loved one but for my own condition. Let me be honest, it is wholly selfish. This is the truth. This realization alone justifies itself by igniting a desire to conquer grief. One of grief's subtleties is its disguise as love, and few truly wish to overcome it. Unthinking ancestors have portrayed mourning as the measure of affection for the departed. Convention upholds this fallacy. Though intelligence has dispelled the most extreme forms of mourning, the principle is so ingrained that one feels shame for not indulging it, as if it were disloyal or irreverent. This is utter folly. Love that produces misery is not love. What harm would come if I declared, I will not grieve but rest in calm faith in the perfection of life? Would she who has passed suffer? No. Would she be loved less? 8,000 times, no. Would she, who was incomparably tender and selfless, living for others' good, now say, wear mourning, weep until your eyes are red, cultivate misery, mourn until your health breaks, for then I will know you love and miss me? Such a thought is unthinkable. Rather, she would say, carry on. I go to peace. Love me in joy, and live your lives fully that we may deserve the reward of reunion. Grief is now transparent to me, unworthy even of pity. I see its role in human evolution as a counter-irritant, an illusion that destroys illusions. When humanity rides high on egotism, drunk with brutality and cruel in irresponsibility, grief brings it to its knees, piercing calloused hearts until they grow sensitive to higher truths. Its sharp pangs have awakened complacent souls from contentment in sin, prompting them to seek a higher order of life. But while grief may serve as a sedative in the absence of reason and understanding, it cannot be justified in their presence. Reason reveals that grief has no legitimate purpose, no function that understanding does not perform far better. As Emerson said, the only thing grief has taught me is how shallow it is. Its role has been to jolt inert consciousness until, out of desperation, it seeks spiritual truths. Aimed at some perceived adversity, it glances off impotently, benefiting only flaws in character. Grief has never eased the cause of sorrow. Of the millions mourned, not one has returned to dry tears or soothe aching hearts. It has neither delayed their departure nor recalled them to mortal sight. Humanity must conquer grief. We are created to demonstrate God-given dominion over the world, for no other purpose. The conquest is not easy but necessary. Only through intelligent reasoning, courageous faith, and joyous determination can this sublime victory be won. Grief conquered otherwise is not truly conquered. Harsh words offer no strength, and a cynical revolt against sorrow only undermines character. Nor does healing lie in ghostly apparitions or occult formulas. It rests in sound reasoning, stripping away ignorant, unproven, and illogical views of life and embracing wiser thoughts. Before intelligence, grief must be cast into the pit alongside goblins, witches, petty gods, and lurking spirits, all superstition. How substantial and lasting my joy becomes as these truths free me from grim dogma. Inspiration once guided me, now I grasp a measure of understanding. I know that grief is not love. It is not virtuous. It is not intelligent. It is not the wish of departed loved ones. And it is not unconquerable. If every sorrowing soul today would rise in their God-given strength and face this pretentious monster, it would flee like a shadow before the sun. Grief is the sting of death and the victory of the grave, and humanity will achieve its first triumph over the final enemy by banishing this shadow from our thoughts. What can the Creator see with greater pleasure than a happy creature? Asks Lessing. Expressing my joy is a duty I owe to the world. There is no death poem. No one is better equipped to fearlessly explore the nature of death than one who mourns a loved one's passing. In carefree times, such thoughts are often avoided, though this avoidance betrays an unspoken, corrosive fear. But when death strikes the heart, the mourner finds solace and defiance in questioning the essence of this great change. Once spiritual awakening has stirred new hope and revealed the emptiness of grief, the next step out of darkness is the bold contemplation of death itself. When this moment arrives, the following letter, "There is no death," proves most powerful. The writer devoted many months to studying this issue before making the bold claims that follow. Yet these claims are true, supported by the enlightened thought of the world. Any clear thinker who dwells on this matter will inevitably conclude that death has no existence. When analyzed and looked at closely, death is nothing. I mean precisely what those words express. It is not even a shadow, it is nothing at all. All the images of death, that are so common, are mere figments of the imagination, or outright creations of superstition. Minot Judson Savage. There is no death. Abraham Lincoln once said he was never satisfied with an idea until he had explored its boundaries on all sides, north, south, east, and west. One is not fully convinced of a truth until they feel it, believe it, and reason it through analogies drawn from experience. As Goethe said, what we do not understand, we do not possess. There is no death. This is true. I have felt and believed it, but proving this intuition, so contrary to common belief, is a challenging step. The absolute negation implied by death complicates investigation. Learned treatises from physicians, educators, clergy, and philosophers offer no single, conclusive definition or convincing evidence. Medical science points to a silenced heart and lungs, speculative philosophy notes the absence of intellect, clergy speak in poetic ambiguities, and the atheist envisions battlefields strewn with silent forms or the endless stream crossing the divide through grieving homes. Yet, while these are labeled the effects of death, death itself remains undefined, eluding every direct inquiry. Humanity is immersed in horizons of its own making, phantom forms like death that vanish upon approach. We gaze across plains to where earth meets sky, perceiving it as the boundary of existence. But march toward this wall, and it recedes with each step. Climb a mountain, and the prison of horizons expands vastly, though earth and sky still meet in distant, misty lines. Horizons arch above in the blue of day or the starlit vaults of night, encircling us even at great heights. They confine us in appearance but cannot hold us, for they are unreal. Primitive minds bow to this apparent imprisonment, but intelligence pierces these illusions, dissolving barriers. We now venture into the distance without fear, yet find infinity ever before us. We peer into interstellar depths, glimpsing vast spaces that hint at eternity. A phantom horizon always lies beyond our furthest advance, marking the limit of progress. We never see all of the universe, but we see enough to know it is infinite. The mind, like the eye, has its horizons, as shadowy and unreal as the sky. They mark not the limit of potential but the extent of current understanding. Expanding intelligence, through science, pushes these margins back with invention and discovery, broadening existence, yet it remains a mere bubble in life's boundless possibilities. We never learn all, but we learn enough to know wisdom and knowledge are immeasurable. Human experience offers no better analogy for birth and death than horizons. They are not realities but limits of perception, outlining vision, not existence. Those who climb spiritual heights gain perspective, seeing these apparent boundaries of life recede, like the heavens before a soaring aviator. No one has risen so high or seen so clearly that horizons vanish entirely, but their elusive nature reveals their unreality, known for what they are, like the circles of sky around us. The blind faith with which early peoples accepted tales of witches, gods, and devils lurking just beyond reality's horizons mirrors humanity's acceptance of death. It has no form we can see, no voice we can hear, no substance we can touch, yet we call it king of the world. It follows no calculable orbit, obeys no mathematical law, unlike nature's true phenomena, yet we deem it inevitable. We have not met it in experience, yet claim to know its place. We cannot define its nature, yet write volumes about it. Reason does not prove it, the mind cannot picture it, hope and instinct do not foresee it, science has not found it, and no sign or symbol of it exists, yet we believe in its reality. We speak of its unseen realm, its unfelt power, and call it immortal without evidence of its existence. We sculpt gruesome images without a model and sing of its conquests we have never witnessed. Nothing in human experience is accepted with less scrutiny than death. A physician stands by a bedside, observing the final efforts of certain organs. When they cease to function conventionally, he pronounces death, implying the end of bodily and conscious existence. But by what authority is the cessation interpreted so? It is as if a traveler vanishes from existence when their ship sails beyond the illusory horizons of the sea. To claim consciousness ends with the heart stopping is as presumptuous as saying stars are annihilated when they sink below the western sky. A dreamer navigates a tangible world, meeting personalities, perceiving forms, and sensing reality, though their body lies still, as in death. The observer sees motionless limbs, yet the dreamer self functions naturally in another form. A paralyzed body does not paralyze thought, nor can a dead body imply the death of thought. Consciousness, in dreams, anesthesia, or mental experiences, can conceive other forms, though the world sees only one. In my Father's house are many mansions in spirit and truth. Individuality expresses itself in myriad forms of consciousness. John Fiske wrote, "The materialistic assumption that the life of the soul ends with the life of the body is perhaps the most colossal instance of baseless assumption in the history of philosophy. Death, then, is without substance. It is a term coined for the western horizon of material sense, spoken by physicians, and exists nowhere else. Its hideous depictions are mere figments of the imagination, not a grim spectre stalking the earth with a scythe, wielding capricious will. Death is merely the supposed opposite of life, a pure negation. Its dread image, coercing humanity through ages, arises from our fears and imagination, with no other existence. Man makes a death nature never made," says Jung. There is no dying principle in nature, Fichte agrees, and Chapman adds, All forms of decay are but masks of regeneration. It is humanity that points to waxen features and cries, "There is death." It is humanity that claims, "Beyond this horizon lies hell, annihilation." God has not said it. From the first lie of its existence spring all subsequent horrors. It is a lie and the father of it. There is an unrecognized dishonesty in claiming death exists as commonly conceived. Death is a thing of faith and not of science, declares Foster. We use the term, laden with morbid inferences, but a moment's reflection reveals we cannot truly conceive death or anyone as dead. Death annihilation implies non-existence, a state human consciousness cannot grasp. Nothingness is inconceivable, says Flora Annie Steele. It is one of the unthinkables of life. Like the fourth dimension, it can be theorized but not imagined. Death is an absolute inconceivability, Gordon states, echoing James Frederick Ferrier. It is utterly unthinkable. Death, as annihilation, as entire destruction of conscious being, is to thought an absurdity. The dead remain objects of thought, they cannot be forced into utter non-existence. However faint or ghostly, they rise as living objects of the mind. Furthermore, one cannot conceive one's own annihilation. Imagine yourself dead, you behold your lifeless body, stand at your own funeral, see your grave filled and covered, with flowers laid upon it. You are always the living percipient mind, with your dead self as the object. Humanity is equipped to conceive only existing things, non-existence lies beyond our mental reach. The notion of vacuity is an absurdity. We cannot honestly conceive death. Life alone is within the scope of our thoughts. Life alone, then, as far as we can discern, is the universe's sole reality, and, as Flammarion declares, the universe itself is a living dynamism. Only that is which acts, says Hinton. In all our searching, we have never found anything but life energy activity. The rocky peaks of eternal hills teem with atomic life, the soil pulses with microscopic organisms, plants adorn the earth, the seas swarm with living creatures, birds and insects fill the air, and the air, sea, and earth radiate perpetual energy. No pinpoint in the universe exists without life. Life alone is true. Conventional names like birth and death do not contradict this. Birth is not the start of life from non-existence but the dawn of a specific expression of life in consciousness. Likewise, death is not a cessation but an evolution of this expression. No state of existence arises without a prior state, before the adult, the youth, before the youth, the child, before the child, the embryo, and the germ. The germ did not spring from nothing, even if viewed as a chemical reaction. Behind it lies chemical existence, and behind that, something causing such behavior. Something always precedes, birthing the next stage. The symbol of immortality is perfect. There is change, a new environment, but no end except in human imagination. Looking forward, a mind that knows only life cannot foresee an end, only change endless, fascinating change horizon after horizon transcended, but never death as falsely taught. Never the spirit born, the spirit shall cease to be never, never was time when it was not, end and beginning are dreams. For birthless and deathless and changeless remaineth the spirit forever, death hath not touched it at all, dead though the house of it seems. If we, from a materialistic view, must use death, it applies endlessly. If we become a child, the embryo died, if a youth, the child perished, if an adult or elder, each prior state ended. Physiologists show our body is entirely renewed every 9 months. Is this not a stream of death? Is this body, replaced so often, less worthy of grief than the one finally buried? If I foolishly seek shadows and adversity, every moment becomes a fragment of death. But this is a distorted view. Bodily changes reveal life's resourcefulness, not its failure. This is the flow of existence through consciousness. Better to abandon the word death while its grim meaning persists. Let us symbolize the eternal process. One passes from embryo to childhood, to youth, to maturity, to old age, and on to greater life, they do not die. They are tireless pilgrims on an endless trail. Arthur Brisbane writes, "We predict that the mysterious force atom called your soul will exist and know itself and its friends 10,000 billions of centuries from now, and be as young as ever." I echo Richard Jefferies, "My soul has never been, and never can be, dipped in time. Time has never existed, and never will, it is a purely artificial arrangement. It is eternity now, it always was eternity, and always will be. By no means could I get into time if I tried. I am in eternity now and must there remain. Haste not, be at rest, this now is eternity. Though horizons encircle me, I am not truly confined, only limited in understanding. My life and universe are infinite, even if I see but a fraction at a time." Reverend Robert Simpson's courage during his final illness inspires us. Seeing the great change approach, he cried, "Now, have at thee, death, have at thee, death. What art thou? I am not afraid of thee. Thou art a vanquished enemy. Thou art only a skeleton, a mere phantom. Have at thee, death. Have at thee, death." As his consciousness ascended, he saw beyond this curve in life, his serene features reflecting victory and peace. So it is with all who rise in spiritual strength to face this phantom boundary. As consciousness sheds sins and fears, ascending into the pure realm of spirit, embracing divine truth and casting off ingrained error, spiritual vision pierces far beyond this horizon. We may not see all of infinite life, but we see enough to know it is eternal. Death hath no torment. Proem Even after rising above grief and embracing the truth that there is no death, the bereaved may be haunted by memories of deathbed scenes. A sense of pity arises, imagining the loved one endured severe suffering during the transition. Such distress stems from erroneous thinking, and the evidence in the following pages reveals that the so-called agony of death is as false and imaginary as death itself. There is pain and sorrow enough in the world for us to spare investing death with grim terrors of our own. There is no terror to the dying about death at all. Arthur Christopher Benson. Death hath no torment. We often overlook the quiet heroes who pass unnoticed among us. Conquerors, explorers, and celebrated figures parade through flag-draped streets to public acclaim, but many in the wayside crowd face trials of character far greater, with silent courage. I was privileged to know one such unsung hero. He was a diligent man, tirelessly working to achieve business success swiftly. His goals were to secure an education for his 2 children, keep his home and business free of debt, and maintain long-standing insurance policies. One day, confiding a request, he shared his secret. Medical diagnosis gave him little time to live, a fact known only to him and his physician. To spare his family months of dread, he used his waning strength to fulfill his duties to them. What profound heroism! Seeking no glory, medals, or public praise, only the well-being of his loved ones, he endured an hourly struggle rivaling the most dramatic battlefield bravery, all with such cheer that none suspected his plight. His faith was inspiring, unwavering in his belief in a future existence, deeply religious yet non-sectarian. Beyond providing for his family, only one concern troubled him. "I do not fear being dead in the least," he said, "but the last moments, the act of dying, the death agonies." He winced, then added, "I only want to do it decently." Months later, he crowned his heroism by meeting the great change as he wished. Smiling at his gathered loved ones, he said simply, "Don't worry about me, this is nothing," and passed without struggle. Only after Wedgemine's passing prompted my search for truth about death did I realize my friend's fear was a common delusion. Had he known the truth, he might have been spared months of mental anguish. The agonies of death are unscientific and contradictory, for death has no agonies. As death itself is a figment of imagination, so too are the horrors and suffering attributed to it. Dr. Aitken, a medical author from Edinburgh, writes, "What is called significantly the agony of death may therefore be presumed to be purely automatic and therefore unfelt. A Scottish Highland saying affirms, "There is always peace before death." How pervasive is this error about the transition? Countless people are tormented by thoughts of death agonies, recalling a loved one's passing with heart-wrenching pity or dreading it for themselves. A writer in Putnam's magazine notes, "The moment of dying, that point when the spirit leaves the body, has almost universally been regarded as one of intense terror. There is reason to believe the opposite is true, that dying usually is as painless and physically as pleasant as sleep." Another observer adds, "We have been assured by hundreds of writers in the press, of the fact, which is unquestionable, when men really die, the fear of death departs. This is the experience of every doctor and nurse. Any suffering during illness fades as one enters the transition's first moments." An elderly man, fearing an imminent departure, asked Sir William Gull, a prominent English physician, if it would be severe. "My dear sir," Gull replied, "you will know nothing about it, it will be just as easy as being born." Professor J. Cook Wilson stood by his father's bedside with skilled physicians as the great change neared, marked by distressing appearances. The elderly man's body seemed to writhe in agony. Wilson, gripped by apparent suffering, could not accept the doctor's assurances of no pain. Suddenly, the spasm ceased, and the patient opened his eyes, calmly remarking he had just enjoyed a peaceful sleep. "I am never tired of saying," declares Sir J. F. Goodhart, a noted London physician who studied hundreds of transitions, "because I am sure it is as true as it is comforting, although in opposition to the general belief, that death has no terror for the sick man. Death gains its potency in obscurity and avoidance. Humanity shuns it in horror, treating it as a dreadful penalty for living, choosing ignorance of its supposed terrors. But this ignorance is its only terror. It thrives in secrecy and fear. Those most familiar with it fear it least. Courageous contemplation strips it of imagined gruesomeness and pain. If death holds no terror for the sick man, how much less should it frighten others? The wisest investigators and the words of those in transition confirm it bears no agony." William Cullen whispered with his final breath, "I wish I had the power of writing, for then I would describe to you how pleasant a thing it is to die." Dr. William Hunter echoed, "If this be dying, our friends need not fear it, casting hope back to the world." Reverend Thomas Vassie said near the end, "If this be dying, it is glorious." Examples abound of apparent bodily suffering without pain to the individual. In epilepsy, despite violent contortions, the person feels nothing, unaware of seeming agonies. Typhoid's delirium passes without the patient's knowledge. Dr. Robert W. McKenna writes, "I have seen healthy sleepers apparently suffer more than the dying, and know nothing about it. In all likelihood, there is as little pain in the act of death as there is in falling asleep." Tolstoy noted, "No one is afraid of falling asleep, yet the phenomena of sleep are like those of death, there is the same loss of consciousness. Man does not fear sleep, although the arrest of consciousness is as complete as death. In war and perilous adventures, those in greatest danger fear dying least. A grand release of responsibility comes when facing imminent death." Robert Falcon Scott, in his final Antarctic notes, wrote, "The great God has called me, but take comfort that I die at peace with the world and myself, not afraid." Dr. David Livingstone, mauled by a lion, felt no pain or concern, later recalling only a humorous thought about which part of him the lion would eat first. Many who have seemingly passed through the great change and returned report no dread or agony. One accident victim described walking beside his stretcher, observing his crushed body without concern, aware of those around him and later recounting their actions. A Spectator writer described a patient, raving in delirium, who suddenly spoke clearly, "I hope that person on the bed is not worrying you as much as he is worrying me. I don't know what he is talking about any more than you do." The writer noted, then followed words showing the real man was neither distracted nor in pain. Death followed soon after. The true man, nearing the agony, was not losing his true self but drawing closer to it. An elderly woman, pronounced dead from pneumonia, later recovered, describing a serene experience among familiar people, untroubled despite regret for her family's grief. Countless cases: drowning victims revived, suicides interrupted, workers resuscitated from electrocution, tell the same story: death arrives without alarm. Walt Whitman wrote, "As to death, it is in reality a very different affair from the romantic stage view of it. I have witnessed hundreds of deaths, and as a rule, it seems just a matter of course, like having your breakfast. As consciousness meets it, the transition feels as natural as sunrise." Sir Goodhart said, "There is nothing terrible to the dying in death itself. The veil between the two worlds is but a cloud, and one passes through it imperceptibly." Wedgemine's final words affirmed this: "I am all right now. The pain of birth belongs to the mother, not the infant, who is unaware. So too, the so-called pains of death are felt by those left behind, not the departing. Our thoughts, not their body, writhe in agony. Their consciousness moves beyond this nerve-bound matter, entering a broader existence, carrying a sense of a body free from the suffering mourners perceive." John Howard Raymond of Harvard said in his final moments, how easy, how easy, how easy to glide from work here to work there," his message bridging worlds, though his last word went unvoiced. Montaigne wrote, "If I were a writer of books, I would compile a register, with a comment, of the various deaths of men. He who should teach men to die, would at the same time teach them to live." But humanity knows how to die. It is the imagined conditions of this transition that distress us. When we face the reality, we find ourselves prepared. Wisdom lies in shedding illusions, abandoning childish fears and man-made specters, trading human misconceptions for the reality of true being. There is the world of reality, abundant and beautiful, moving along God's invisible laws, and the world of human belief, a realm of strife, misery, and limitation. There is the life of reality, eternal, omnipotent, radiant with potential joy, spiritual, and perfect, and the life of human conception, material, hopeless, crushed by presumed laws of matter. There is the death of reality, which is no death at all, a painless transition, and the death of human invention, annihilating and terrifying. Consciousness of reality heals all human ills. Reality surpasses imagination, says Goethe. Rather than horror, many find joyous revelation at the moment of transition. Charles Reade exclaimed, "Amazing, amazing glory! I am having Paul's understanding, ceasing breath to hear the divine voice." William Eddy whispered, "Wonderful, wonderful this death," his joyous expression showing a sublime experience. Reverend Augustus Montague, author of Rock of Ages, told those at his bedside, "No mortal man can live after the glories which God has manifested to my soul, his mortal form fading as his immortal self thrived." Many have entered the transition singing, their songs unfinished on earth, or met by melodies too sublime for human ears. Jacob Biman, a lifelong seeker of spiritual truth, asked, "Do you hear music?" before saying, "I go hence." Our loved ones are, and always have been, in God's hands, not ours, subject to his infinite wisdom, not our errors. While we battle shadows, life's great realities move in perfect harmony, blessing us in our awakening. "Ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free," said the Master. Knowing the truth about grief, death, and its supposed agonies is a glorious release. How could I doubt again? Could I heed the fearful, material arguments trailing grief, bitterness, and misery, when I am now so joyously free? What could the world say to outweigh the wonders God reveals within? A friend, hearing these thoughts, declared, "My fear of death is gone," but added, to my dismay, "Almost this makes me yearn for death." Yearn for death? God forbid. Better to leave these truths unspoken than to foster longing for this transition. Better the old fear of agonies than a new error, subtler and more harmful, masquerading as truth. Those who yearn for death misinterpret this work's purpose. Would we seek solace in a realm of negation, denying a fabled land one moment and craving it the next because it is painless? Death is not a cure for human struggles. It is a false premise, without substance, neither tormenting nor extinguishing life, nor relieving us of growth's responsibilities. Work out your own salvation, commands Scripture. Shall we make a god of death, believing it soothes the spirit and annuls life's demands? The Creator is a living God, declaring, "Thou shalt have no other gods before me." Death is a stage in human progress, Sears states, to be passed as we would pass from childhood to youth, or from youth to manhood, with the same consciousness of an everlasting spirit. Should a child yearn for youth merely because the change holds no pain? Such haste carries a heavy penalty. The wise move patiently through each stage, fully expressing life at every step, learning from the past, preparing for the future, but living in the eternal now. The Galilean prophet neither sought nor accepted death, despite myriad challenges, declaring, "I come that they might have life, and that they might have it more abundantly," triumphing over the grave. St. John said, "Beloved, now are ye the sons of God. Death does not make us so." The nature of death is revealed not to glorify or idealize the transition but to simplify its conquest, expose it as a vanquishable enemy, and inspire humanity to overcome it. It places full responsibility on us for our destiny, awakening us to the truth that we live in the divine now, and paradise is obscured not by death or life, but by our own sins and fears. Do not yearn for death. Resist this fallacy with all your strength and understanding. Let us restate it: there is no death, neither fear nor seek it. Death hath no torment, no need for dread. Beyond the transition lie peace, tranquility, and boundless joy, but no more than here and now. Bliss is neither withheld nor granted by death. There, as here, happiness and spiritual ecstasy are realized as understanding elevates us above ignorance and error, death included. I believe life and the universe are spiritual and perfect. I believe the Creator is infinite intelligence, caring for his creatures with love and wisdom beyond human grasp. I believe God and his creation are inseparable and eternal. I believe the perfection of being will shine as we purify our thoughts from evil, fear, and material thinking. I believe sickness, sin, death, and hell exist only in the fictitious world of human error, while the true universe moves eternally in perfect harmony. I believe we live in this spiritual universe now, dreaming our errors, for in him we live, and move, and have our being. I believe nothing evil is real, and nothing real is evil. I believe understanding divine perfection will free us from the torments of error, here and now. In light of my experiences, readings, and insights, I can believe no other way, so help me God. The dead are here. A new companionship proem. For some time, the manuscript "The Dead Are Here" remained private, as the writer believed its thoughts, which banished loneliness from his consciousness, were personal. One day, after speaking publicly on this topic, an elderly woman in distress approached him. "I have heard what you said," she shared, "and I see the truth of immortality. I know my dear son lives on, and I will see him again in a kindred state. But how can I ease my present loneliness?" Moved to respond, the writer shared the story in this letter. The joy it brought her revealed a universal need for this message, which has since comforted many with its healing power. We are led to believe that there exists now an invisible order of things intimately connected with the present, and capable of acting energetically upon it, for, in truth, the energy of the present system is to be looked upon as originally derived from the invisible universe. Tate and Stewart. The Dead Are Here. From a diary entry at the Sanctuary of Wedgemind, September 21, 1931. Tonight is steeped in tender memories. Soft starlight filters through the majestic trees enveloping the sanctuary. The first autumn frost chills the still air, and the forest crackles under its touch. Nature is in its most mystical mood. The lively great fire speaks, as if lost in retrospection. Blessed memories stir, recalling a glorious night when nature was in a similar mood. Wedgemind sat with me before this very fireplace, in an hour of profound connection rare even among the closest hearts. Silence cloaked us for a time, as we entertained divine thoughts too sacred for words. Then Wedgmine spoke, her voice radiant with a beauty surpassing its usual charm. I listened, entranced, to her inspired thoughts so divine they seemed to flow not from a human but an angel. Her gaze reached beyond the world, seeking beauty and truth. She spoke of nature, the struggles of plants and trees, the marvels of humble weeds, the tender loves of birds, and the universal craving for understanding and sympathy. She described the sublimity of earth and sky, the grand processes of nature, and the physical universe as a mere shadow of the cosmos of mind and spirit. She addressed humanity's self-inflicted torments, wars, poverty, disease, and sin, saying, all the sorrow and adversity man experiences are the offspring of selfishness. Her words echoed Fichte's truth, there is only one virtue to forget yourself as a person, only one vice to think of yourself. Late into the night, she spoke, and I listened eagerly, fearful of missing a single pearl of wisdom. I had never peered so deeply into her soul, its depth and purity captivating me. Only then did I truly know Wedgmine, my prior perceptions shallow. I saw her glorious spirit, grasping her ideas beyond her words. That joy lifted me from my errors, revealing all humanity in a brighter light. We walked into the night, through the dark shadows of great trees to the silent shores of a sleeping lake. There, we gazed in reverence at the starlit canopy of heaven and its perfect reflection in the still waters. God, what peace! My eyes welled at its magnitude. Feeling the divine presence as never before, I prayed that not one moment of that evening's gifts would ever fade. None ever has. The inspiration and understanding stirred then remain mine, and I revel in their light tonight. Memory recalls another cherished hour, far from the sanctuary, in a bustling city. Wedgmine had passed on, and I navigated the chaotic crowds, irritated by the noise. The sun scorched the urban canyons, and traffic's clamor deafened me. For hours, I was gripped by a painful loneliness, worsened by the turmoil. I held fast to the truths of immortality, heaven, and God, but mourned the loss of Wedgmine's close companionship. Though I never doubted she lived on since my moment with God, I felt her absence. Suddenly, I sensed her near, not in any physical place, but wonderfully close. It was not a bodily presence but a spiritual intimacy, akin to those sacred hours at the sanctuary. I felt cool, calm, and patient amidst the crowd, untouched by its chaos. No ghostly touch or whisper reached me, no spectral form appeared, but I was enveloped by the love, sympathy, and spiritual mindedness that defined Wedgmine's companionship. Her grand ideas of life and the universe flowed through me again. I likened it to those former moments of intimacy, seeing the same depth in her soul, the same spiritual reality. The urban setting, so unlike the sanctuary, confirmed this was no trick of memory. For a moment, I resisted, then, with a surge of release, I said aloud, "It is she." Loneliness vanished. Before God, no evidence of another's presence ever felt as real as Wedgmine's non-physical testimony that day. The crowd, perceived by my senses, was less real than she. They were fleeting shadows, while I met her true self with my true self. The deluge of happiness mirrored past experiences, and when a friend noticed my broad smile and asked its cause, I could not trust my voice to answer. This experience recurs often, fostering a companionship I would not trade for the old, God be my witness. Why deem it unreal? Did I love the dust of her body? That dust remains, as detectable as ever, yet it was not that material form I loved, but her kindness, sympathy, and motherliness, her spiritual qualities. Mother love is, and always was, spiritual. Can I believe these qualities are destroyed while soulless dust endures? Can I think they cannot reach me through spiritual sense, when mere matter impresses my physical senses? Does the lesser outshine the greater? True, I cannot see these qualities with physical eyes, but I never did. These things are spiritually discerned. Dr. William Hannah Thompson writes, "Personality is always and forever invisible. Man, because he is like God, is as unseen by mortal eye as God himself. Honesty, goodness, courage, friendship, these are expressed in the flesh but not seen by it, before or after death. This is the eternal man, unbound by tombs, untouched by decay. But what of individuality? Are these spiritual qualities absorbed into a vast sea of spirit, losing the individual? No, individuality is a prized creation, a reality never destroyed. No two leaves, blades of grass, or snowflakes are identical, every person's true self is unique, its mold broken. Let us reflect that each one of us is a thought of God, said Madame Swetchine. No thought is ever lost. Goethe wrote, Thou art in the end what thou art. Thou abidest ever what thou art. Kant declared, it is as good as demonstrated, that also in this life the human soul stands in an indissoluble communion with all the immaterial beings of the spiritual world, that it produces effects on them, and, in return, receives impressions from them. Can I say Wedgemine's mother love cannot reach me through soul's holy channels, as it did through the imperfect medium of flesh? Her affections transcended distance, walls, and my flaws during our earthly bond. They face no greater barriers now. I feel her encouragement and quiet wisdom as I write, as real as if she sat beside me, speaking through human language. Campbell Abbott wrote, My friend gripped my hand, and I did not doubt that he was here, though my hand has often lied to me. From the great beyond he now embraces my soul, and much less shall I doubt that he is here, for my soul has never lied. Physical touch is but a symbol of love. Now I feel union with its basic reality, unhindered by symbols. Is the disciples' experience on the Mount of Transfiguration the symbol of eternal companionship? With Christ, they rose to a spiritual height where he was transfigured, not changed, for he was always God's perfect image, but revealed to their awakened sight. They saw him clearly, freed from material form, yet real, conversing with Moses and Elias, who were also embodied and individual. This was not a momentary union but an eternal one, missed by carnal senses. Like islands appearing separate yet joined beneath the sea, true beings are eternally bound by invisible ties. Is this the ultimate companionship? Is reunion found in purifying consciousness until we see that, before, during, and after material life and death, we are ever united with true spiritual individuality? On this plane, relationships friend to friend, lover to lover, human to human, human to nature remain unbroken, transcending time and matter. Walt Whitman wrote, I do not doubt interiors have their interiors, and exteriors have their exteriors, and the eyesight has another eyesight, and the hearing another hearing, and the voice another voice. I embrace this new companionship, as old as life, lovingly provided by the omniscient Creator. It is my consolation, to reject it would be sacrilege. Even if rooted in faith, it is no less certain than companionship in the flesh. The dead live on. They are here. Their gentle, non-material presence whispers of love, kindness, sympathy, and encouragement is real, our comfort against loneliness. They are closer than ever, within our hearts, no longer confined to isolated matter. When you read these, I, that was visible, am become invisible, now it is you, compact, visible, realizing my power, seeking me, fancying how happy you were if I could be with you, and become your loving comrade, be as if I were with you. Be not too certain but I am with you. Walt Whitman. This conviction dispels any thought of ending my life. In my cynical past, I considered hastening death to escape struggle. But what folly! Can death, an illusion, grant the peace and understanding life offers? Could it bring me closer to Wedgemind? No. Companionship thrives on shared qualities. Cowardice cannot join courage. Separation lies in differing character, not distance. My task is to uplift my consciousness, to deserve these revelations and trust their truth. Daily, this new companionship grows naturally. I will not rush it with impatience. Let me live in my highest sense of right, knowing this brings happiness and progress to me and wedge a mind. I have seen too much of human failure and divine success to be deceived again. Man-made notions of companionship, love, life, or death hold no truth. The Creator's way satisfies me, I walk it patiently, grateful for its blessings and guided by the beacon of spiritual reality. Our great thoughts, our great affections, the truths of our life, never leave us. Surely they cannot separate from our consciousness, shall follow it whithersoever that shall go, and are of their nature divine and immortal. Thackeray. Immortality. The promise of instinct. Proem. When the grieving heart finds peace, the intellect grows active. Many in this state have written to sanctuary letters with arguments, as did the one who inspired this letter. It is wise to reason on these matters, for they are reasonable. While immortality cannot be fully proven through reason alone, once recognized as a divine intuition, it is well supported by true reasoning. The intuition of immortality is written in the very heart of man, and by a hand which writes no falsehoods. Theodore Parker. Immortality. The promise of instinct. A letter arrives from one newly struck by grief. Are you honest in your conviction of immortality? She asks, not as a challenge but to bolster her hopes. You have not always thought thus. What proof can you give others? Her questions prompt a need for reflection and clarity. It is true I have not always embraced immortality, and those darker stages of my thought remain vivid. There was a time when death seemed the ultimate calamity, steeped in fear and a primitive view of heaven and hell, where only a few deserved eternal reward while others faced endless suffering or annihilation. Education dispelled this fog, but with little gain, as I fell into atheism and indifference. Rejecting a man-made God, I denied any supreme being, swaggering in apathy toward talk of life or death. This inertia gave way to intellectualism, philosophy, and egotism, where I glorified the human mind, claiming life was merely chemical reactions and that we authored our own existence. In those shifting beliefs, could I have claimed honesty if deeply questioned? No, not with true introspection. Nor could I have offered irrefutable proof. I played at these beliefs like a child at games, their arguments dominating my mind until they seemed real, much as a playground transforms into a sea of adventure in a child's fancy. I spoke of hell and damnation but harbored a fundamental disbelief I dared not face. I denied a God out of rebellion against a flawed theology, yet deep within, I knew a higher God existed. I echoed materialist claims that life was a product of unintelligent matter, but never truly believed it. Through this long, unhappy journey, while my mind toyed with theories, my intuition always knew life was spiritual and eternal. No amount of cynicism or argument could erase this instinct, which emerged unscathed into full recognition. Am I honest in my conviction of immortality? Yes. I was never philosophically honest before. I have always known it to be true, though my distorted concepts deserving of death clouded it. The deity, earth, heaven, and life of human invention cannot endure, only the reality of God's creation lives forever. But I am asked for proof. What can I say? No microscope has found the soul, no telescope its home. To demand material proof is to confine spirit and mind to matter's mold, where proof itself would perish. Immortality is the promise of instinct, the testimony of hope, and the inference of reason. It is through spiritual sense that God, eternity, and heaven are perceived. Emerson declares, all great men find eternity affirmed in the very promise of their faculties, and, I am a better believer, and all serious souls are better believers in immortality than we can give grounds for. The real evidence is too subtle, or is higher than we can write down in propositions. Walt Whitman claimed he saw immortality not as apparitions, but as a state of being in his consciousness. Would ghostly tales or logical arguments convince my friend? They did not sway me in my years of doubt, before my moment of enlightenment and subsequent convictions. Arguments alone never convince, the soul's door opens from within, and enlightenment is an individual awakening. James Martineau writes, we do not believe immortality because we have proved it, but we forever try to prove it because we believe it. The heart, not the intellect, holds wisdom. The Creator has planted truth in the soul, but it is not for dissection. Whittier says, after all, there is no use arguing the question of immortality. One must feel its truth. Has humanity ever proven anything? If immortality is unproven, is mortality proven? No, death is an unverified assumption. If the soul is unproven, is the body? No, it is merely a sensory inference. If spirit is unproven, is matter? No. A modern scientist declares, matter is an unproved theory. Tennyson writes, thou canst not prove the nameless, O my son, thou canst not prove the world thou livest in, thou canst not prove that thou art body alone, nor canst thou prove that thou art immortal, no, nor yet that thou art mortal, nay my son, thou canst not prove that I, who speak with thee, am not thyself in converse with thyself, for nothing worthy proving can be proven, nor yet disproven. God does not prove himself to humanity. Eternity need not shrink to fit time's measure. Immortality need not die to prove itself, nor spirit confine itself to matter to satisfy human ego. Life is not on trial. Pilgrim's Progress states, God has endowed us with different faculties, suitable and proportional to the different objects that engage them. We discover sensible things by our senses, rational things by reason, things intellectual by understanding, but divine and celestial things he has reserved for the exercise of our faith, which is a kind of divine and superior sense of the soul. Dr. Thomson J. Judson adds, the fundamental postulate is that there can be no faculty without a function. We look through infinite creation to an infinite creator, and through our higher instincts to the truth of perfect, unending life. Stuart Edward White affirms, I, myself, have that inner conviction of survival beyond this earth, and I trust that conviction. Immortality is a fixed element of human consciousness, an ineradicable intuition across all races and individuals. If only a few held this belief, it might be called fiction. But Theodore Parker notes, all men desire to be immortal. This desire is instinctive, natural, universal. It belongs to the human race. You may find nations so crude that they live houseless in caverns, without letters, bows, arrows, fire, or clothes, but no nation without a belief in immortal life. From scholars to Australian bushmen, from barbaric tribes to peaceful clergy, the idea of continued existence prevails, shaping morality, inspiring endeavor, and forming the foundation of spiritual progress. Some concepts of eternity are as crude as primitive notions of the earth's shape. Our own visions of jeweled cities are no less absurd. Australian Aborigines imagine eternity as earthly reincarnations, with souls the size of sand grains lurking near rocks until entering a passing woman. The Koita of New Guinea believe souls live on Mount Edu, continuing physical life. New Caledonians envision a rich land at the sea's bottom. These ideas, though ludicrous, confirm the universal instinct for eternity. Notably, no instinct exists for death or annihilation. Missionaries struggle to translate death is inevitable into native tongues, as such concepts are seen as curses, not realities. Science views primitive peoples as undeveloped, not degenerated, their crude visions of immortality matching their evolutionary stage. Humanity cannot escape the thought of immortality, even if feigning disbelief. Inability to explain it may lead to denial, yet we accept the physical world without explaining it. Emerson states, the resurrection and continuance of our being is granted, we carry the pledge of this in our breasts. I maintain merely that we cannot say in what form or manner our existence will be continued. Buried deep, this instinct persists, like gravity, influencing us until we acknowledge it, soothing sorrows and fears. One asked, is not the tendency to grieve or recognize death the same infallible instinct? No, these are fears, born from distrusting instinct's promise, a timid reversal of hope. When Professor N asked, what if I said I did not desire immortality? I replied, you are striving to dismiss a yearning your intellect cannot fulfill. He nodded after reflection. Humans often voice fears as if to ward them off. The businessman speaks of failure, the soldier of bullets, the aged of decline, all exalting death's inevitability not from desire, but fear. No instinct supports these fears, they stem from insufficient thought and dishonesty. Yet, no matter how we argue, the instinctive truth of immortality endures, like a patient mother waiting for her child's prattle to cease, speaking softly with divine clarity to silence mortal reasoning. This universal instinct is telling. Immortal life is not for a select few, time burns away sin, not sinners. Socrates said, all men's souls are immortal, but the souls of the righteous are both immortal and divine. God does not plant instincts without purpose. The beaver builds for winter, the squirrel grows fur, the bear stores fat, the bird migrates unerringly, the bee finds clover, and the pigeon returns home. Newell Dwight Hillis writes, instincts are nature's prophecies foretelling coming events. In vain do we ransack all nature for a single instance in which nature's instincts have deceived insect or bird. Does nature use so great skill for guiding beasts, but become a blunderer in guiding men? Humanity yearns for the freedom of clouds, the flight of birds, unhindered by earth's tethers. This instinct birthed aircraft. The desire to record thoughts led to writing, enriching life. The need for distant communication brought the telegraph, cable, and radio. Labor-saving inventions arose from the desire to rise above physical burdens. Nothing new is added to the universe, nor old removed, all springs from latent potentialities. That which hath been is now, and that which is to be hath already been. Instincts for invention rested in humanity's breast, as did immortality. The deer does not yearn for wings, nor the fish for boats, their instincts align with their nature, as humanity's align with ours. Instinct and desire are tied to what we seek, the first light of reality touching consciousness, heralding an unfolding event. Coming events cast their shadows before them, and man is the meeting point of various stages of reality. We see existence as a chain, past through memory, future through instinct, all within the eternal now. This teaches a profound lesson. I see instinct and desire for immortality, for life's purpose and fullness, and fear that this instinct misleads. Instinct has always guided humanity accurately, while fear breeds misery. Instinct offers promise and divine guidance, fear brings hopelessness and grief. Instinct bears the Creator's stamp, justified by its works, fear is a liar, existing only when recognized, a mere negation like darkness. Instinct declares, thou, man, art immortal. A son of the living, all-wise God. Thy future is sure, purposeful, unending. Fear counters, you are deluded. Your hope is groundless. You are a chemical accident, doomed. Instinct is indestructible, eternally operative, fear has no substance unless acknowledged. Why turn to this delusive fear over the proven testimony of instinct? To my friend, I write, you ask if I am honest in my conviction of immortality. I reply without hesitation, yes. I believe in it more than the earth and sun, I see and think only immortality, I know it to be true. You ask for proof. I can give none, nor can any man, not because proof is lacking, but because it is not ours to give. God has written proof of your immortal nature in your heart, as he has for all. Deep within, beyond strife, pretense, or analysis, lies an instinctive knowledge that you are as immortal as the God who made you, inseparable from him. Trust this holy intuition, and its testimony will rise hourly, until unshakable conviction fills you. Then, like me, you may offer grieving friends the testimony of your enduring happiness. Eternity the law. Many feel their education in physical sciences bars them from spiritual convictions, perceiving a conflict at first glance. But this arises from thinking within the physical conception of the universe, not beyond it. A modern scientist has stated, there is nothing in science which disproves personal immortality. The writer, once constrained by his modest knowledge of physics before the experience described in Letter 1, found that material obstacles became stepping stones to spiritual growth. The logic that lifted the burden of materialism follows. Our abiding belief is that just as the workmen in the tunnel of St. Gotthard, working from either end, met at last to shake hands in the very root of the mountain, so students of nature and students of Christianity will yet join hands in the unity of reason and faith, in the heart of their deepest mysteries. Lemuel Moss. Eternity. The Law. All roads lead to the boundless here, all time converges in the eternal now, and each individual stands at the center of their universe. No matter how long the journey, I could only arrive at this point in life. I stand on glorious heights, lifted by revelation, sustained by faith and reason, aware of the spiritual essence of all things and their eternal nature. Looking over the valley of human confusion, I see all paths, however winding, blocked by vanity or dogma, lost in intricate theories, merge at this mount of spiritual truth. Had I wandered the dark trail of human philosophy, I would have concluded, God is true, and every man a liar. Had I followed primitive theology's dim path, exhausting its superstitions, I would have seen God's infinite goodness. Had I explored science's deep canyons, probing matter's core, I would have emerged, through the futility of that pursuit, knowing only mind is real, and God the only mind. No other destination was possible, for my soul was tethered to this mountain while my thoughts struggled below. It is joyous to know that all, regardless of their path, will one day reach this sublime height, finding peace and happiness beyond their greatest hopes. Every material foundation proves a window to spirit. The divine compass, set in the soul, guides even the most faltering steps forward in darkness. What hastens this arrival? From the valley, no path is clear, human problems and prejudices obscure the destination, like a finger hiding the sun when held too close. From high places, we see all roads lead here, but not from the winding trail. As the apostle said, we walk by faith, not by sight. Faith aligns our steps until the soul awakens, and understanding reveals the way. I could not have reasoned my way to immortality's full conviction, but now it is profoundly reasonable. Philip Cabot writes, faith begins in the heart, not in the head. Men develop feelings into ideas, not ideas into feelings. Testimony finds the believing heart. I reason from conviction, not to it. Truth knocks at consciousness's door. Once admitted, all experience affirms it. Until that door opens from within, truth seems silent. Faith in hope and intuition is the first step. What hinders this ennobling faith? Humanity knows it is immortal, yet two specters, matter and time, block full acceptance. The universe's apparent solidity and the endless succession of events preoccupy us, leading us to compress spirit into matter and measure eternity by time. Such incongruity breeds confusion and despair. Matter has dominated humanity, contesting our worth, claiming life stems from its reactions. It poses as reality, omnipotent, indifferent, hostile to life, binding our movements and hopes. Time, its ally, shackles us with limits, confining existence to mere decades. Matter claims to be life's substance, time its duration, relentless masters, merciless to their slaves. But what is the substance and authority of these tyrants? What is matter? What is time? Only recently has humanity dared question them. Scientific laboratories have probed matter's nature, yielding astounding findings. The world appears flat but is spherical, the heavens seem to revolve, yet the earth spins, creating illusions. Primitive ideas dissolve. Planetary motion, winds, vegetation, and humanity follow calculable laws, not whims or accidents. Telescopes reveal vast distances, microscopes uncover tiny, perfect worlds, life within and without our initial beliefs. Matter flees like a shadow before science's searchlight. Once thought solid, it is now a field of atoms, particles that do not touch, composed of electrons and protons, mere units of electricity. Flammarion states, What we call matter vanishes just as scientific analysis believes it is about to grasp it. We find force is the dynamic element, the mainstay of the universe. Sir James Jeans likens matter to a rainbow or echo, saying, electrons are objects of thought, and time the process of thinking. Yet matter's apparent solidity persists. Knowing its tenuous nature does not erase it from consciousness. We feel, see, hear, smell, and taste matter, and this seems our entire experience. But the point is we think we do. Caroline Haddon writes, our senses give us only appearances of things, which differ from the things themselves. Sensation is mental, the eye cannot see, the ear cannot hear, the mind constructs these experiences. We touch an object, call it solid, but know only the sensation. Flammarion adds, let us give sensations their due and not confound them with reality. We are certain of sensations, not the things themselves. Matter, then, is a mental concept born from unknown stimuli. Miller states, matter is a bundle of sensations. Bishop Berkeley went further, suggesting matter exists only as sensations, like hallucinations, a view unproven but unrefuted. Thus, all we know concretely is our mental notion of things, and life is thought the product of mind. Something external, not of our volition, creates these impressions. The sound conclusion, reality exists, but matter, as conceived, is not it. Mind authors thought, and all we experience objects, colors, sounds, pains, pleasures is mental. These experiences are twofold, false, like primitive notions of earth and sky, and true, the actualities stimulating perception. The true is reality, the false, erroneous interpretation. Both are mental, but the true endures unalterably, while the false vanishes like a mirage when truth appears. Science refines our thoughts, not reality. We did not lose the earth or sun by learning their nature, nor solidity by understanding matter. We shed superstition, not existence. Solidity, color, sound, and space remain useful as thoughts. Humanity becomes part of all it beholds. The conclusion is clear, false images are human miscreations, true entities spring from a supreme, non-human mind. Matter's manifestations are how spiritual creations filter through carnal senses. Humanity's error lies in mistaking sensations for reality, building a tomb of matter and dwelling within it, like a bear pacing a cage's limits even in larger quarters. We are freed from matter's duress, let us live in that liberty. Deeper still, matter as a field of force is not a cause but a result. Force requires a cause law. Atomic activity follows unvarying, calculable laws: gravity, light speed, gas pressure. Knowing phenomena are mental and express laws, we conclude we live in a mind-created, mind-governed, spiritual universe. We see signs, not solids, contact forces, contemplate laws. Laws reveal the purpose of the creative mind, the source of true being. Science, once seeming spirituality's foe, completes a circle, proving immortality by disproving materiality, as religion does through God's omnipotence. From laws, we draw implications for immortality. Nature's law of conservation ensures no energy is lost. Atoms transform, stars burst, continents sink, but every atom persists. Du Bois-Reymond states, the qualities of matter are eternal and inalienable. No new atom enters, creation is complete, unfolding eternally. Emerson writes, not a ray is dimmed, not an atom worn, nature's oldest force is as good as new. Sir Oliver Lodge adds, whatever fundamentally exists must be independent of time, it may change, but cannot go out of existence. If laws know no loss, we cannot be lost. L. Backel writes, matter is indestructible and uncreatable, transforming through combinations. Life forces, including the human soul, share this permanency, capable of transformation but not destruction. No law permits annihilation of the real. Humanity thinking, reasoning, expressing power, beauty, love is real, under eternal life's law. Individuality and consciousness, too, are protected. As an astronomer calculates a planet's orbit from one arc, we deduce eternity from this law. Nothing real has a beginning or end. Humanity, part of creation, is eternal. Misinterpretations change nothing. Even believing we die and decay, we awaken to our divine, indestructible substance. Physics proves there is no physical thing, eternity is fact, evidenced by all experience. The world passes through consciousness, not humanity through it. Erroneous concepts, not humanity, die. The psalmist cries, "Whither shall I go from thy spirit? If I ascend to heaven, thou art there, if I make my bed in hell, behold, thou art there." No corner of the universe escapes the Christ, truth. Galileo, Agassiz, and Newton saw divine essence in laws, affirming all true knowledge points to the Creator and his spiritual creation. W. J. Colville writes, Pythagoras, Socrates, Plato asserted the soul, has always existed and forever will. Atoms elude physical research, existing only as living ideas, immortal thoughts of deity. As we see ourselves as pure spirit, we demonstrate immortality, unlocking perfect health, rest, and happiness. Heaven. Proem. The letter heaven was written during a prolonged period of spiritual ecstasy, inspired by the thoughts in this volume. It demonstrates that as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. This state of happiness is not a matter of chance but the result of applying a definite science, the science of right thinking and acting. It is the embodiment of laws humanity has always known in its heart. Attaining this state is an individual journey, available now, not deferred. Freely ye have received, freely give. 3 stages lead to the greatest good from these thoughts. 1. Systematically reading and absorbing the ideas. 2. Continuously refreshing thought by humbly seeking more spiritual truth. 3. Sharing the joy and blessings with others. Heaven consists of heavenly knowledge, love, and action. It is seeing God's truth, loving God's goodness, and doing God's will. These 3 qualities or acts constitute the essence of heaven here, and of heaven hereafter. In this world, though the delight that comes to us from without is very precious, and by no means to be despised, yet the delight which comes from knowledge, love, and actions is all which is permanent, all which we can keep after we have gained it, all which becomes part of the soul itself. James Freeman Clarke. Heaven. A beautiful thought has followed humanity through its wanderings, the vision of a harmonious state of being called heaven. Amid sin, humanity dreams of a realm without sin. In the turmoil of material strife, hatred, and violence, it hears whispers of a life filled with love. Even in the agony of death, it reaches for a deathless existence, the promise of the soul. No one lacks this instinctive hope. In primitive times, humanity clothed it in superstition, placing it beyond circling stars, adorning it with worldly jewels and golden streets, imagining a state of glorified indulgence. But Revelation unveils a new heaven and a new earth, a truer vision of real being. Paradise is neither distant in space nor time, nor a delusion. Experience teaches we can trust this hope, and heaven is at hand. A modern sage declares, heaven is a state of mind. Was I in heaven that day at the sanctuary, climbing a great hill, gazing over waves of trees and jewel-like lakes? I seemed to look up through nature to nature's God. The trees sang of his glory, looking at God all day, and lifting their leafy arms to pray. The verdant sea below pulsed with life, the circling hawk, the cautious deer, the lake mirroring clouds, the ferns, moss, and humming insects all woven into a heavenly mosaic, a sublime tone poem. My heart did not question but adored. I loved not a person, group, nation, or world, but the universe's farthest reaches and nearest atoms, all within its infinite dimensions. I loved not an idea, ideology, or creed, but the boundless ideas of infinite mind. I loved not a spirit, church, or saint, but the spiritual infinity of God, who is love. I loved not objects, conditions, or places, but because love's pure consciousness, the universe's foundation, filled me. I felt akin to all spiritual creation and loved my neighbor as myself. Was I in heaven that night, sitting from dusk to dawn with the inspired writings of noble souls, sensitive to truths offered to a resisting world? Their words were vivid, forceful, real, as if I were in their company. It is said God speaks through humanity, unable to bear his direct voice. I heard God through these channels. Confucius said, "Heaven means to be one with God," and I knew it was true. Longfellow wrote, "Life is the gift of God, and is divine," and I felt its truth. James Freeman Clarke declared, "What God gives he gives forever," sealing the covenant. I saw the world through Emerson's clarity, nature through Burroughs, Muir, and Jeffries, solitude through Thoreau, and humanity through Whitman's soul. Behind every masked criminal, worker, poet, banker, cobbler, soldier, miser, drunkard, philanthropist, I saw each as a divine idea of God. At dawn, peace enveloped me, my consciousness elevated, joy bringing silent tears. I watched the rising sun and loved my neighbor as myself. Was I in heaven that day, called to a friend's home, finding her in grief over a sudden loss? Helpless, I shared my moment with God. When I spoke of the light around me, she looked up, startled and joyous. Our eyes met briefly, but I saw she understood. Her tears stopped, and she smiled gloriously. She was free. She, too, had seen this light, and my story confirmed her experience. I walked the streets, my soul overflowing with gratitude, my cup runneth over. I was grateful for life, love, the air I breathed, the ground beneath me, foresight, hearing, and everyday miracles. Never had I been so aware of God's gifts, so humbled by my unworthiness. I thanked God for all and loved my neighbor as myself. Am I in heaven these blessed months, as life's higher order grows clearer? Friends' greetings carry new warmth, my heart new love. Mornings dawn joyously, nights close in glory, the sun shines brighter, stars move with majesty. Music gains depth, art beauty, friendship richness, love depth. Labor holds new worth, rest deeper peace. A higher sense of value reigns. God is as great in minuteness as in magnitude. A bird's flight is a miracle, the humblest task a privilege. God shines in an animal's eyes, speaks in a dog's caress. I rise with a song, work in joyous prayer, and greet each evening feeling not a day lost, but gained. Homes around me are thrones of joy, sprouting seeds of heaven. I envy no one, knowing each has their own world, and I love my neighbor as myself. Milton wrote, "The mind is in its own place, and in itself can make a heaven of hell, a hell of heaven." No greater bliss exists than a heart filled with unselfish love and a mind with reverence. Does not hate kindle hell's fires? Who has hated and not suffered, stolen and not been impoverished, or sought joy in sin and not crushed it from their heart? Shakespeare said, "Divines and dying men may talk of hell, but in my heart her several torments dwell." Ecstasy or torment lies within me, not in distant places or future states. Paul, swung from earth to heaven in one divine light, declared, "To be carnally minded is death." He did not say carnal-mindedness causes death, it is death. Materialism is death, and those in its grip are the dead, not those who have transitioned. To be spiritually minded is life and peace, he continued, revealing the resurrection not a mystery, but a demonstrable fact. The carnal-minded dwell in death, the spiritually minded live in eternal life and heaven. As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. The wisest man said, "The kingdom of God is within you." Within consciousness lies the eternal state of harmony called heaven. Seeking it in wealth, power, sin, society, or seclusion is futile. Dwelling on higher thoughts, opening my heart to divine inflow, trusting my intuitions, my consciousness becomes a temple of joy. But one moment of carnal thought brings darkness. While I love my neighbor, eternal life is clear, the departed are near, God is real. envy, hate, or falsehood dissolves my heaven, leaving loneliness and doubt. No radical change occurs at transition. We grow in understanding gradually. Browning wrote, "No work begun ever pauses for death." Kirkham's outdoor philosophy states, "The kingdom of heaven is a state of mind attained in growth evolution away from ignorance, worldliness, selfishness. A single spiritual truth sparks ecstasy. Could I desire a greater paradise than eternal enlightenment? Heaven is living, not a bejeweled city of inertia. Joyous labor is humanity's greatest possession, as immortal as the worker." Myers, in Human Personality, writes, "All omens point toward the steady continuance of just such labor as has taught us all we know." Dr. William Chester adds, "All eternity will be a gradual growth in knowledge. The joy of such mental unfoldment is unspeakable. Eternity has no starting point. It is now or never, here or nowhere." Carlyle said, "The impediment is in thyself, here or nowhere is thy kingdom." Consciousness expands, shedding limitations of time, matter, and space, uncovering God's glories and sin's errors. The tomb is not heaven's gate here and now. We rise in the spiritual scale to find the eternal city within. Lillian Whiting writes, "The other world is not a place but a condition, entered at any moment by the harmony of the spirit, of abounding energy and achievement, raising life's forces to a higher power, eliminating negative thought, emancipating from regret, fear, anxiety. Every loving thought breathes heaven, every creature reveals God, every spiritual idea glimpses eternity. Creation's scheme is grand. God's provision is abundant. Sophisticates ask, what would I do through eternity to avoid boredom? Emerson replies, all that I have seen teaches me to trust God for all I have not seen. Creation overflows with supply fields, forests, sciences, arts, and intuitive knowledge meet every need. God declares, all that I have is thine. Whitman writes, I do not doubt that whatever can possibly happen is provided for in the inference of things. If we need variety, friends, or reunions, they are provided, while selfish desires are ignored. God, love, precedes us, leaving all we need. Let me build my spiritual sanctuary, gathering pure thoughts and true ideas, the kingdom of heaven. This is eternity's work, beginning now. Plato said, I must be as good and noble as possible. Like Nehemiah building Jerusalem's wall, I ignore materialism's cries of sin and wealth. I pour spiritual evidence into my thoughts, drowning out the world's voice. I love fearlessly, purely God supremely, His universe, my neighbor as myself. Herein lies my treasure, my fellowship with Wedgemind, my faith in eternity, my joy in life, my duty to others, my oneness with God. St. John said, love is the fulfilling of the law. And I saw a new heaven and a new earth, for the first heaven and the first earth were passed away. And I heard a great voice out of heaven saying, Behold, the tabernacle of God is with men, and he will dwell with them, and be their God. And God shall wipe away all tears from their eyes, and there shall be no more death, neither sorrow, nor crying, neither shall there be any more pain, for the former things are passed away. Revelation Concordata, Sanctuary Letters. There is profound strength in corroboration. However firm one's convictions, finding kindred thoughts in another, especially someone of known integrity and insight, adds fortitude. The following gems, gathered from enlightened pens, align with the experiences and meditations in the Sanctuary Letters. Arranged sequentially for the reader's convenience, this Concordata offers a fertile field for reflection, where one may find counsel and companionship with renowned thinkers. As Montaigne said, I quote others only to better express myself, and we read quotations to better understand ourselves. These thoughts often satisfy the hungry mind with a single insight when prolonged reading is not desired. Concordata to a moment with God. In the darkness of death, there have ever been men who could not believe in death. I say believe, for death, like life, is a thing of faith, not science. These men have sought life, and seers speak of a light falling from beyond the grave to us. Never have intimations been wanting that death is not the end. George Berman Foster, Functions of Death in Human Experience. Oh, if we could tear aside the veil and see for 1 hour what it means to be a soul in the power of an endless life, what a revelation it would be. Horace Bushnell. Reverend Lyman Beecher, D.D., father of Henry Ward Beecher, on his deathbed, called his daughter, thinking it was his wife, "Mother, come sit beside me, I have had a glorious vision of heaven. I think I have begun to go. Oh, such scenes as I have been permitted to behold. I have seen the King of Glory himself. Blessed be God for revealing himself. Depi, 80 years and beyond, do not fear for me, I have had a divine light." Last words of Mechnikov. Scientist. Does there not exist an inner illumination by which we can see things as they are, beholding all creation in its true being and order? Edward Carpenter. Toward democracy, it is the soul itself that sees and hears, not those parts which are but windows to the soul. Cicero. When love carries us above all things, we receive in peace the incomprehensible light, enfolding and penetrating us. What is this light, if not a contemplation of the infinite and an intuition of eternity? We behold what we are, and are what we behold, because our being, without losing its personality, is united with the divine truth. Ruysbroek, quoted by Evelyn Underhill, Mysticism. Eternity wears upon her face the veil of time. They see only the veil and know not what they stand so near. Alexander Smith. Most men have known Platonic hours of initiation, when the sense of beauty rises to a passion, mingling strangeness and terror with joy. Evelyn Underhill, Mysticism. The prime characteristic of cosmic consciousness is a consciousness of the cosmos, the life and order of the universe, bringing intellectual enlightenment that places the individual on a new plane, almost a new species. With this comes moral exaltation, elevation, joyousness, and a quickened moral sense, as striking as the enhanced intellect. Added is a sense of immortality, not a conviction that one shall have it, but that one has it already. Men are specks of relative death in an infinite ocean of life. The life in man is eternal, as all life is, the soul is as immortal as God, the universe is built so all works for the good of each, founded on love, ensuring every individual's happiness. Dr. R. M. Buck, Cosmic Consciousness. O Truth Divine! Enlightened by thy ray, I grope and guess no more, but see my way. Arbuthnot. In the realm of spirit, all things are possible. What seems a miracle on the natural plane is as simple as an everyday occurrence. Lillian Whiting. The world beautiful spiritual illumination comes not through intellect but when the heart's desires are spiritualized by a power greater than ours. Then we possess our life and destiny. James Freeman Clarke. The sunbeam has no light of its own but partakes of the sun's life. So the spirit partakes of God's life, unborn, undying, sinless. John Herman Randall. Life of Reality. The union of divine and human natures is the fundamental truth. Man becomes conscious of the infinite within, transcending the world. Religion is inner identification with it. Oiken. Everything but the soul of man is a passing shadow. The enduring substance is within the glorious destinies of the immortal soul. W. E. Channing. I saw an ocean of darkness and death, but an infinite ocean of light and love flows over it. In that, I saw God's infinite love. George Fox. On his moment of illumination I remember the night, almost the spot on the hilltop, where my soul opened into the infinite. The darkness held a presence felt but unseen. I could not doubt he was there more than I was. Professor William James. Hast never come to thee an hour, a sudden gleam divine, bursting all these bubbles, fashions, wealth, business, books, politics, arts, amours to utter nothingness? Walt Whitman. Complete works in illness, bereavement, music, or solitude with nature, a practical man finds himself in the presence of the great reality. John Herman Randall. Life of Reality. Love above all language, goodness unimagined, light without measure shines in my heart. Jaco Pondit Todi. After his illumination not a sorrow, burden, temptation, bereavement, or tear lacks its antipode in God's inexhaustible resources. George C. Lorimer. What soothes suffering, sanctifies labor, makes man good, wise, patient, just, and humble is the vision of a better world. Victor Hugo. Immortality. O air sweeps all pains, tears, time, fears, and peals into my ears, thou livest forever. Byron. Not a day, hour, or moment have I doubted or feared death. Today I have been blessed. I never saw such glory before, such light, clearness, beauty. I want to tell the world. Last words of Reverend Elijah Heading, quoted by Dupuy. 80 years and beyond. Here it was as a flash of lightning, a curtain drawn aside for a momentary sight of treasures. God showed me his infinite being, but my capacity could not bear it all. Venerable Marina de Escobar, quoted by Pauline. I looked at the sky, hills, and river, amazed. I had never realized how divinely beautiful the world was. I saw atoms, material or spiritual, rearranging as the cosmos passes from order to order, all blended in one harmonious whole. Universal life, synonymous with universal love. Quoted of C.M.C. Cosmic Consciousness, Dr. R. M. Buck. Out of this experience was born an unfaltering trust, a silence vast and grand, an infinite ocean of calm. The kingdom within. Quoted of C.M.C. Cosmic Consciousness, Dr. R. M. Buck. As children lost in the dark take cheer when one cries, I see a light, we find hope in those with assurance of immortality. Those who have it are obliged to share it with mourners. Albion Fellows. Bacon. Consolation. The main object for those with cosmic sense is to bestow it upon the race, each feeling some power to do so. Dr. R. M. Buck. Cosmic Consciousness. God's life is all life. You are one with God, part of his life. He is the soul of your soul. Josiah Royce. The first grand belief is that death is not an end, it is an incident in the onward progress of individual life, not a hope, but knowledge. Minot Judson Savage, D.D. We conceive this world process animated by divine purpose. We bear an individuated part of that purpose. The perfection of each is necessary to its fulfillment, as a living, growing member. Fenn. Immortality and Theism. Immortality is the leverage of righteousness, raising humanity from vices, the ally of love against brutality, the postulate of true life. Gordon. Witness to immortality. To the conquest of grief we are made for something not yet apparent, akin to the perfect that draws us. We seek God because we have found him. Rufus M. Jones. The inner life. There are moods where we court suffering, hoping to find reality. But it turns out to be counterfeit. The only thing grief has taught me is how shallow it is. Emerson. It is folly to tear one's hair in sorrow, as if grief could be assuaged by baldness. Cicero. Are we selfish in our grief? Consider a family divided, some in Europe, some in America. On the European pier, the remnant weeps as the ship departs, hearts heavy as it fades. But in America, there is glad expectation, as the vessel arrives, they embrace in blessed reunion. Should those left behind not temper their sorrow with the joy of those who greet the arrival? Minot Judson Savage, D.D. Light on the cloud. Sorrows, as lingering guests, I entertain moderately, knowing the more they are indulged, the longer they persist. Bishop Hall. Grief is not the expression of love, it is self-love. Campbell Abbott. Our respect for the dead is shown with black feathers, horses, dresses, heraldries, costly obelisks, dismal vaults, and falsehoods in epitaphs. John Ruskin. In the Congo, on a chief's death, 12 girls compete to be buried with him, some killed in the fray. In India until 1829, widows perished in suttee, an honorable act. Herodotus notes the slaughter of slaves and horses, even maiming them to mimic grief. Bertram Puckle. Funeral customs. Excess of grief is madness, it injures the living, and the dead know it not. Xenophon. Let others weep like brutes, cutting ears and noses. Let us be joyful. Let infidels mourn. Let us not demand our friends from God, as it would cost their prosperity. William Hugh. The troubled man's medicine. Sorrow is a summons to rise higher in Christian character. Quoted by Mildred Mifflin. out of the darkness into the light. Imagination should detach our thoughts from the grave and lift them to friends in heaven. Minot Judson Savage, D.D., light on the clouds. Be like the bird perched on a frail branch, singing loudly, knowing it has wings. Madame de Gasperin. Why sorrow so? Why dispute God's will with complaints? Do you lament because he is delivered from danger to safety, bondage to liberty, disease to immortality, men to angels? If you knew his felicity, you would be joyful. Mourn for yourselves, not so near our sweet country. William Hugh, the troubled man's medicine. Anxiety empties today of its strength, not tomorrow of its sorrow. Ian McLaren. What has become of men, women, children? They are alive somewhere, the smallest sprout shows there is no death. To die is luckier. Walt Whitman. Complete works. Grief makes a loss greater, not retrieves it. Wisherly. Here bring your wounded hearts, earth hath no sorrow that heaven cannot heal. More. If I could say nothing better, I would say with Mirabeau, today, I shall die, crowned with flowers, surrounded with music, to enter eternal sleep. But believers have a better hope, a better courage. Dr. Dewey. This earth side is a small part of life. Offset earthly events with their spiritual meaning. Minot Judson Savage, D.D., light on the clouds. I buried my materialism in my father's grave, said Robert Hall, as the soul's immortality forced itself upon him. Mildred Mifflin. Out of the darkness into the light let me joy with all living creatures. The prayer of Richard Jefferies. The spiritual world is not closed, it is thy sense that is, thy heart is dead. Girton. Nothing is ever lost. No birth, identity, life, force. The body, cold, shall flame again. The spring's invisible law returns. Walt Whitman. Continuities. There is no death. What seems so is transition. Longfellow. Man cannot die, he is capable of believing in God, conjoined to him by faith and love, to live to eternity. Swedenborg. It will appear how impertinent that grief was which served no end of life. Jeremy Taylor. Give God the margin of eternity to justify himself. The more we know our souls, the more we trust his goodness. Hugh R. Haughtius. Animate us to cheerfulness. May we maintain perpetual contentedness. W. E. Channing. The propensity to hope and joy is real riches, to fear and sorrow, real poverty. Hume. Cease to lament for what thou canst not help, study help for what thou lamentest. Shakespeare. Have you asked for instruction by which we hear what cannot be heard, perceive what cannot be perceived, know what cannot be known? Upanishad. Kandogya. Teach hope to all, despair to none. Abraham Lincoln. Lincoln's yearbook. There is an avarice in grief, sorrow loves to gaze upon its woes in solitude. William Mason. If there is an evil, it is sorrow and heaviness of heart. Take that out, the rest is fancy in the head of man. Stern. God is glorified not by groans, but by thanksgivings, good thought and action align with cheer. Whipple. Insight into the unity of human existence with the divine is the profoundest knowledge. Nothing will seem strange in God's world. Fichte. Whoever turns their eyes to heaven has lost nothing, he who looks down on time's plains is the loser. Richter. Our imagination magnifies this existence, reducing eternity to nothingness, a habit reason cannot break. Pascal. Look not at thy sorrows, but beyond to the deliverer, whose power is over them. Isaac Pennington. Concordata, Sanctuary Letters. There is profound strength in corroboration. However firm one's convictions, finding kindred thoughts in another, especially someone of known integrity and insight, adds fortitude. The following gems, gathered from enlightened pens, align with the experiences and meditations in the Sanctuary Letters. Arranged sequentially for the reader's convenience, this Concordata offers a fertile field for reflection, where one may find counsel and companionship with renowned thinkers. As Montaigne said, I quote others only to better express myself, and we read quotations to better understand ourselves. These thoughts often satisfy the hungry mind with a single insight when prolonged reading is not desired. Concordata. To a moment with God in the darkness of death. There have ever been men who could not believe in death. I say believe, For death, like life, is a thing of faith, not science. These men have sought life, and seers speak of a light falling from beyond the grave to us. Never have intimations been wanting that death is not the end. George Berman Foster, Functions of Death in Human Experience. Oh, if we could tear aside the veil and see for 1 hour what it means to be a soul in the power of an endless life, what a revelation it would be. Horace Bushnell. Reverend Lyman Beecher, D.D., father of Henry Ward Beecher, on his deathbed, called his daughter, thinking it was his wife, "Mother, come sit beside me, I have had a glorious vision of heaven. I think I have begun to go. Oh, such scenes as I have been permitted to behold. I have seen the King of Glory himself. Blessed be God for revealing himself. Depi, 80 years and beyond. Do not fear for me, I have had a divine light." Last words of Mechnikov. Scientist. Does there not exist an inner illumination by which we can see things as they are, beholding all creation in its true being and order? Edward Carpenter. Toward democracy, it is the soul itself that sees and hears, not those parts which are but windows to the soul. Cicero. When love carries us above all things, we receive in peace the incomprehensible light, enfolding and penetrating us. What is this light, if not a contemplation of the infinite and an intuition of eternity? We behold what we are, and are what we behold, because our being, without losing its personality, is united with the divine truth. Ruysbroek, quoted by Evelyn Underhill, mysticism. Eternity wears upon her face the veil of time. They see only the veil and know not what they stand so near. Alexander Smith. Most men have known Platonic hours of initiation, when the sense of beauty rises to a passion, mingling strangeness and terror with joy. Evelyn Underhill, mysticism. The prime characteristic of cosmic consciousness is a consciousness of the cosmos, the life and order of the universe, bringing an intellectual enlightenment that places the individual on a new plane, almost a new species. With this comes moral exaltation, elevation, joyousness, and a quickened moral sense, as striking as the enhanced intellect. Added is a sense of immortality, not a conviction that one shall have it, but that one has it already. Men are specks of relative death in an infinite ocean of life. The life in man is eternal, as all life is, the soul is as immortal as God, the universe is built so all works for the good of each, founded on love, ensuring every individual's happiness. Dr. R. M. Buck, Cosmic Consciousness. O Truth Divine! Enlightened by thy ray, I grope and guess no more, but see my way. Arbuthnot. In the realm of spirit, all things are possible. What seems a miracle on the natural plane is as simple as an everyday occurrence. Lillian Whiting. The world beautiful spiritual illumination comes not through intellect but when the heart's desires are spiritualized by a power greater than ours. Then we possess our life and destiny. James Freeman Clarke. The sunbeam has no light of its own but partakes of the sun's life. So the spirit partakes of God's life, unborn, undying, sinless. John Herman Randall. Life of Reality. The union of divine and human natures is the fundamental truth. Man becomes conscious of the infinite within, transcending the world. Religion is inner identification with it. Oiken. Everything but the soul of man is a passing shadow. The enduring substance is within the glorious destinies of the immortal soul. W. E. Channing. I saw an ocean of darkness and death, but an infinite ocean of light and love flows over it. In that, I saw God's infinite love. George Fox. On his moment of illumination I remember the night, almost the spot on the hilltop, where my soul opened into the infinite. The darkness held a presence felt but unseen. I could not doubt he was there more than I was. Professor William James. Hast never come to thee an hour, a sudden gleam divine, bursting all these bubbles, fashions, wealth, business, books, politics, arts, amours to utter nothingness? Walt Whitman. Complete works in illness, bereavement, music, or solitude with nature, a practical man finds himself in the presence of the great reality. John Herman Randall. Life of Reality. Love above all language, goodness unimagined, light without measure shines in my heart. Jaco Ponde Todi. after his illumination not a sorrow, burden, temptation, bereavement, or tear lacks its antipode in God's inexhaustible resources. George C. Lorimer. What soothes suffering, sanctifies labor, makes man good, wise, patient, just, and humble is the vision of a better world. Victor Hugo. Immortality. O air sweeps all pains, tears, time, fears, and peals into my ears, thou livest forever. Byron. Not a day, hour, or moment have I doubted or feared death. Today I have been blessed. I never saw such glory before, such light, clearness, beauty. I want to tell the world. Last words of Reverend Elijah Heading, quoted by DePie. 80 years and beyond. Here it was as a flash of lightning, a curtain drawn aside for a momentary sight of treasures. God showed me his infinite being, but my capacity could not bear it all. Venerable Marina de Escobar, quoted by Pauline. I looked at the sky, hills, and river, amazed. I had never realized how divinely beautiful the world was. I saw atoms, material or spiritual, rearranging as the cosmos passes from order to order, all blended in one harmonious whole. Universal life, synonymous with universal love. Quoted of C.M.C. Cosmic Consciousness, Dr. R. M. Buck. Out of this experience was born an unfaltering trust, a silence vast and grand, an infinite ocean of calm. The kingdom within. Quoted of C.M.C. Cosmic Consciousness, Dr. R. M. Buck. As children lost in the dark take cheer when one cries, I see a light. We find hope in those with assurance of immortality. Those who have it are obliged to share it with mourners. Albion Fellows. Bacon. Consolation. The main object for those with cosmic sense is to bestow it upon the race, each feeling some power to do so. Dr. R. M. Buck. Cosmic Consciousness. God's life is all life. You are one with God, part of his life. He is the soul of your soul. Josiah Royce. The first grand belief is that death is not an end, it is an incident in the onward progress of individual life, not a hope, but knowledge. Minot Judson Savage, D.D. We conceive this world process animated by divine purpose. We bear an individuated part of that purpose. The perfection of each is necessary to its fulfillment, as a living, growing member. Fenn. Immortality and Theism. Immortality is the leverage of righteousness, raising humanity from vices, the ally of love against brutality, the postulate of true life. Gordon. Witness to immortality. To the conquest of grief we are made for something not yet apparent, akin to the perfect that draws us. We seek God because we have found him. Rufus M. Jones. The inner life. There are moods where we court suffering, hoping to find reality. But it turns out to be counterfeit. The only thing grief has taught me is how shallow it is. Emerson. It is folly to tear one's hair in sorrow, as if grief could be assuaged by baldness. Cicero. Are we selfish in our grief? Consider a family divided, some in Europe, some in America. On the European pier, the remnant weeps as the ship departs, hearts heavy as it fades. But in America, there is glad expectation. As the vessel arrives, they embrace in blessed reunion. Should those left behind not temper their sorrow with the joy of those who greet the arrival? Minot Judson Savage, D.D. Light on the cloud. Sorrows, as lingering guests, I entertain moderately, knowing the more they are indulged, the longer they persist. Bishop Hall. Grief is not the expression of love, it is self-love. Campbell Abbott. Our respect for the dead is shown with black feathers, horses, dresses, heraldries, costly obelisks, dismal vaults, and falsehoods in epitaphs. John Ruskin. In the Congo, on a chief's death, 12 girls compete to be buried with him, some killed in the fray. In India until 1829, widows perished in suttee, an honorable act. Herodotus notes the slaughter of slaves and horses, even maiming them to mimic grief. Bertram Puckle. Funeral customs. Excess of grief is madness, it injures the living, and the dead know it not. Xenophon. Let others weep like brutes, cutting ears and noses. Let us be joyful. Let infidels mourn. Let us not demand our friends from God, as it would cost their prosperity. William Hugh, The Troubled Man's Medicine. Sorrow is a summons to rise higher in Christian character. Quoted by Mildred Mifflin, out of the darkness into the light. Imagination should detach our thoughts from the grave and lift them to friends in heaven. Minot Judson Savage, D.D., Light on the clouds. Be like the bird perched on a frail branch, singing loudly, knowing it has wings. Madame de Gasperin. Why sorrow so? Why dispute God's will with complaints? Do you lament because he is delivered from danger to safety, bondage to liberty, disease to immortality, men to angels? If you knew his felicity, you would be joyful. Mourn for yourselves, not so near our sweet country. William Hugh, The Troubled Man's Medicine. Anxiety empties today of its strength, not tomorrow of its sorrow. Ian McLaren. What has become of men, women, children? They are alive somewhere, the smallest sprout shows there is no death. To die is luckier. Walt Whitman, Complete Works. Grief makes a loss greater, not retrieves it. Wisherly here bring your wounded hearts, earth hath no sorrow that heaven cannot heal. More if I could say nothing better, I would say with Mirabeau, today, I shall die, crowned with flowers, surrounded with music, to enter eternal sleep. But believers have a better hope, a better courage. Dr. Dewey. This earth side is a small part of life. Offset earthly events with their spiritual meaning. Minot Judson Savage, D.D., Light on the clouds. I buried my materialism in my father's grave, said Robert Hall, as the soul's immortality forced itself upon him. Mildred Mifflin, Out of the darkness into the light let me joy with all living creatures. The prayer of Richard Jefferies. The spiritual world is not closed, it is thy sense that is, thy heart is dead. Girton. Nothing is ever lost. No birth, identity, life, force. The body, cold, shall flame again. The spring's invisible law returns. Walt Whitman, Continuities. There is no death. What seems so is transition. Longfellow. Man cannot die, he is capable of believing in God, conjoined to him by faith and love, to live to eternity. Swedenborg. It will appear how impertinent that grief was which served no end of life. Jeremy Taylor. Give God the margin of eternity to justify himself. The more we know our souls, the more we trust his goodness. Hugh R. Haughtius. Animate us to cheerfulness. May we maintain perpetual contentedness. W. E. Channing. The propensity to hope and joy is real riches, to fear and sorrow, real poverty. Hume. Cease to lament for what thou canst not help, study help for what thou lamentest. Shakespeare. Have you asked for instruction by which we hear what cannot be heard, perceive what cannot be perceived, know what cannot be known? Upanishad. Kandogya. Teach hope to all, despair to none. Abraham Lincoln, Lincoln's Yearbook. There is an avarice in grief, sorrow loves to gaze upon its woes in solitude. William Mason. If there is an evil, it is sorrow and heaviness of heart. Take that out, the rest is fancy in the head of man. Stern. God is glorified not by groans, but by thanksgivings, good thought and action align with cheer. Whipple. Insight into the unity of human existence with the divine is the profoundest knowledge. Nothing will seem strange in God's world. Fichte. Whoever turns their eyes to heaven has lost nothing, he who looks down on time's plains is the loser. Richter. Our imagination magnifies this existence, reducing eternity to nothingness, a habit reason cannot break. Pascal. Look not at thy sorrows, but beyond to the deliverer, whose power is over them. Isaac Pennington. To there is no death. If men who do not see life would approach the phantoms that alarm them, they would perceive they are only phantoms, not realities. Tolstoy, Complete Works, Volume 10. The words of Scripture, the last enemy that shall be destroyed is death, are fulfilled by destroying the false terrors of death. Lillian Whiting, Life transfigured. Death is like thunder, formidable only from what preceded it. C. Colton. When men are sane and natural, death appears an earthly accident, setting the personality free for a wider life. William Hannah Thompson, M.D., Life, Death, and Immortality. Death is no argument against life. The materialist begins to see that life as an entity may not exist. Purely scientifically, there is no death of the body, which was never alive. Spiritual life is all. Wilfred T. Grenfell, M.D., on immortality. There is no death, those we love have progressed to a new plane of existence. John Herman Randall, the dead never have died. Do you suspect death? If I were to suspect death, I should die now. Do you think I could walk toward annihilation? Walt Whitman, Complete Works. Death may touch our sensible vesture, but it is only a vesture which decays. Our being goes on in another life. Stopford Brooke. We understand death when it touches one we love. Madame de Staël. Death is not an end, but a transitional crisis. All forms of decay are masks of regeneration. Chapman. Death is a great adventure. The man of faith may face it as Columbus faced his voyage. His insight persuades him the sea has another shore. Harry Emerson. Fosdick, assurance of immortality. Death, which destroys man, is believed. God, who made and loves him, is deferred. Sir Walter Raleigh. What is death but ceasing to be what we were before? We die daily, nature provides a better place. Seneca. Bite, frostbite. You have bitten into the heart of the earth, but not into mine. Tennyson. The window to death hath no torment. Teach me your mood, O patient stars, who climb each night the ancient sky, leaving no shade, no scars, no fear to die. Emerson, quoted in the Gypsy Trail. No man fit to live need fear to die. When we taste its reality, it will mean birth, deliverance, a new creation. God's great morning lighting up the sky. George S. Merriam. God wants us to die triumphant deaths. Reverend Isaias Reed, quoted by S. A. Perry. Man fears not death, but life. The fear of death is the consciousness of life's contradiction. Tolstoy, Complete Works, Volume 10. Man created the fear of death. Fanon. In life, the fear of anything is worse than the thing itself, especially death. When the dying hour comes, fear disappears. Arthur MacDonald, The American Journal of Psychology, Volume 32. He who has learned to die has forgot what it is to be a slave. Montaigne, Essay on Death. The passage death is not painful. The most timid traveler divests fear when the shadow looms. Dr. Robert McKenna, Adventure of Death. To face death with the confidence we face sleep would change civilization. Lillian Whiting, Life Transfigured. The dreadful images of death are figments of imagination or superstition. They ought to be banished from enlightened thought. Minot Judson Savage, D.D., Light on the Clouds. How easy, how easy, how easy to glide from work here to work there. Last words of John Howard Raymond, President of Vassar College, quoted by Marvin. There need be no dread of the pangs of dissolution. Death is gentle, painless, like a fading flower or falling leaf. Woods Hutchinson, The Open Court, Volume 9. If this be dying, nothing could be easier. Charles II. Cullen whispered, I wish I had the power to describe how pleasant it is to die. Dr. Derby, quoted by Marvin, Last words of distinguished men and women. There is no agony in death. It is like the calm after a storm. Dr. Robert McKenna, Adventure of Death. It is as natural to die as to be born. Convulsions at death are not suffering, but the mind deserting its control. Putnam's Magazine, March 1870. A sailor, revived from drowning, proclaimed he had been in heaven, complaining of being restored. His moral character improved. Sir Benjamin Brodie, Psychological Inquiries. All pain and terror are before death arrives. It is sleep, peace, calmness. The brain is a 70-year clock, wound at birth, the key given to the angel of resurrection. Minot Judson Savage, D.D., Light on the Clouds. A septuagenarian recovered from pneumonia felt no pain or fear. The London Times, February 1914. The idea that death is always agony is an error. Those who study it agree it usually is not. Sir William Savery, F.R.S., quoted in the London Times, February 1914. A doctor felt no pain or concern during near death from heart failure. Instances could be multiplied indefinitely. M.R.C.S., The London Times, February 1914. The death agony is unscientific. Most pass in unconsciousness. Every time we sleep, we die. Dr. Cameron Giles, The Living Age, May 1914. Sir Samuel Baker, mauled by a bear, felt no pain, only resentment at the beast's enjoyment. Woods Hutchinson, The Open Court, Volume 9. We look at death through the flawed windows of the flesh. Lowell. We are unconscious of pain at birth. The pangs are the mother's, the child likely does not suffer. So at death. Dr. Robert McKenna, Adventure of Death. Dorothy McL, nearly dead after surgery, found it heart satisfying. She made an enormous sacrifice to recover for her sister's sake. Atlantic Monthly, January 1930, Contributors Club. It is a glorious thing to die. Her last word was, joy. Last words of Hannah More, quoted by DePie, 70 years and beyond. Mr. John Tasker, aged 74, pointed upward when unable to speak, signaling heaven's opening. DePie, 70 years and beyond. If men with false ideas of life reasoned calmly, they would find nothing disagreeable in death. Tolstoy, Complete Works, Volume 10. Lift up thy head. The battle with agony and death is an occasion for noble virtues: patience, trust, self-conquest. Death is a transient incident. Anonymous, quoted by Mildred Mifflin, out of the darkness into the light to the dead are here. They that love beyond the world cannot be separated by it. Death cannot kill what never dies. Friends live in one another still. William Penn, Elbert Hubbard's scrapbook. There is a voice from the tomb sweeter than song, a remembrance of the dead we turn to even from the living. Washington Irving. There are moments of life that brighten as time steals away. J.C. Percival. Amid the world's roar, they speak to us as clearly as of old, of Christ, duty, life, immortality, bidding us look upward. E.B. Seco, quoted by Kate Sanborn, the starlight calendar. Our great thoughts, affections, truths never leave us. They are divine and immortal. Thackeray. Ask nature, she will tell you man is immortal. The stars say life is infinite, the heart says all this is true. Campbell. Abbott. When the heart is softened by happiness or affection, the memory of the dead comes powerfully, as if our soul holds mysterious intercourse with those we loved. Dickens. They are not dead. The mother with her gentle voice is there. How do we best know our friend? When we see the spirit the body hides. John Page Hops, Thoughts for the Heart and Life. Let us be silent. We may hear echoes from other worlds not far away. Ella Wheeler Wilcox, It may be now she is with God. It seemed Margaret took my hand, drew me up. A great sun rose, an ineffable glory spread. She is more vitally alive than ever, happy. Albion Fellows Bacon, Consolation. We live in an invisible world. The invisible things are important, real, lasting. Reverend Lyman Abbott. The spiritual man lives in constant communion with divine influences. Lillian Whiting, Life transfigured sometimes, by a clear lake in perfect calm, we see to its depths. So with souls, in rare moments, we glimpse their treasures. John Page Hops, Thoughts for the Heart and Life. No impression made upon a human soul will ever be erased. Moral philosophy. When the flesh is nothing, I know the spiritual is the real. The I is an eternal reality. Lord Tennyson, Memoirs, by his son. In the good, the beautiful, the true, we see reality revealing its personal character. Rudolf Eucken. Do you know what a man is? Birth, beauty, manhood, learning, virtue, liberality, the spice and salt that season a man. Shakespeare. He who sees the real man sees that man is immortal. Campbell Abbott. An overwhelming flood of recollections of eternal life, the spiritual body, gave me strength. Promises glowed in letters of light. Albion Fellows Bacon, Consolation. All nature is a vast symbolism, every material fact sheathes a spiritual truth. Chapin. Celestial beings have relationships with us, ministering, sympathizing, rejoicing. A restraining sense of high companionship. Reverend Basil Wilberforce, D.D., Archdeacon of Westminster, voices of the glorified urge us onward. God cries, go forward. Come up higher. Sir William Jones, he shall fight on, fair ever, there as here, in a world where sense, time, birth, and death are not. Henry Drummond, personality is always invisible. Man, like God, is unseen by mortal eye. William Hannah Thompson, M.D., Doctor of Laws, Life, Death, and Immortality. We are building an unseen celestial body, more adapted to the character our thoughts develop. Burnett Hillman Streeter, Immortality. It is frivolous to seek the location of thought, emotion, affection. They are non-spatial. Dr. George Croswell Cressy, Ph.D., The Essential Man. The loss of friends by death causes no sorrow to the soul in higher realization. Spiritual communion is within reach. Ralph Waldo Trine, in tune with the infinite love, stronger than death, may revoke separation. Souls that belong to each other must unite. Dr. Hedges, Ways of the Spirit. Man is a spiritual being with a spiritual body, now and here, not merely assumed by death. Lillian Whiting, Life transfigured life on this side, and that is one unbroken whole. I am already in eternity, with God. Concordata, Sanctuary Letters. Concordata to Immortality. The promise of instinct. When we do not know the way and dare not hoist a sail, we can drift. The current knows the way though we do not. F.W. Gonzalez, monk and knight. I have a deep inner conviction of survival beyond this earth life, and I trust that conviction. Stuart Edward White, Credo. Finite as we are, lost though we seem in the wilderness of time and chance, we have, like strayed animals or migrating birds, our homing instinct. Josiah Royce, The World and the Individual. We have the idea of immortality. Whence came it? Our ideas result from sense and reason. The mind, an architect, builds the world from sense according to its plan. Yet, in reason, ideas like God, duty, and immortality find no realization in sense. The idea of God is his self-impression upon reason, essentially true. Reality casts its image on the mind, and God as reality shadows himself in the soul. There is no account of God other than his fact. Gordon, Witness to Immortality. The dark comes down, but a star beckons beyond the thing we are. John Galen Howard. The desire for immortality is an instinct, indicating what the author wills to do. Dr. Robert McKenna, Adventure of Death. We belong to a higher place, and an eternal longing consumes us. Jean-Paul Richter. No subtlety of metaphysics can make me doubt the immortality of the soul or a beneficent providence. I feel it, desire it, hope it, and will defend it to my last breath. Rousseau. There is, I know not how, in the minds of men, a presage of future existence, deepest in the greatest and most exalted souls. Cicero. The immortality of the soul is a truth for which man is prepared by his nature. Lord Selborne. As Theodore Parker says, the intuition of immortality is written in the heart of man by a hand that writes no falsehoods. Human instincts are prophecies of matters to be realized. As nature provides for a bird's flight or a fish's swim, so the Supreme Being provides for man's instinct of immortality. The unending future will be fully realized. Dr. David Hegel, Do the Dead Still Live? Scientists interpret instincts as nature's prophecies. In vain we search for an instance where nature's instincts deceive insect or bird. Does nature guide beasts but blunder with man? Newell Dwight Hillis. We grant human life is mean, but what is the ground of this discontent? The soul's enormous claim. Emerson. I feel in myself the future life. I am rising toward the sky. Heaven lights up with unknown worlds. Victor Hugo. Immortality runs through Egyptian history, building pyramids, decorating tombs, writing the Book of the Dead, founding Thebes, giving poets their songs a golden web through literature. The cuneiform tablets of Assyria, Babylon, and Chaldea bear one message: life beyond the grave. Reverend A.J. Waldron, quoted in What Happens After Death? I delight in believing myself as immortal as God himself. Baron Montesquieu. God will give assurance of life after death through prayer and thought, requiring prayer rightly understood, a living theology, a truer interpretation of experience, and consideration of our experience's goal. Burnett Hillman Streeter, Immortality. All men act under the impression of immortality, however they talk, though they may be scarcely sensible of it. Samuel Johnson. The resurrection is granted. We carry its pledge in our breasts. The plant of a desire indicates its gratification is in the creature's constitution. The Creator keeps his word. What I have seen teaches me to trust for what I have not seen. Will you educate your children to a masterpiece and then destroy them? Emerson. Immortality is inseparable from the consciousness of likeness to God, of communion and cooperation with Him. Watson. Boone Duncan. Immortality and modern thought. The profoundest researches confirm man's essence is immaterial, a soul, wondrously associated with a physical organism. George Croswell Cressy, Ph.D. The essential man intuition is the clear conception of the whole at once. Lavater. Immortality, common among all humans through all ages, must be an instinct, an element of human nature, a prophecy of realization. Dr. David Hegel, Do the Dead Still Live? The belief in immortality starts as an intuition suggested by hopes and fears unfolding as doctrine. Morris Jastrow. The heart, not reason, leads to the absolute. Resigjack. Knowledge of immortality is acquired by intuition or experience, there is no other way. Fraser. Belief in immortality. We cannot know the reality of the simplest object, a limitation few realize. Evelyn Underhill, Mysticism. The best part of truth hovers in gleams and suggestions before man. These dawning truths console him for the brevity of civic life. Emerson, Journal. Reason places the deity's existence on grounds rendering doubts absurd and atheism ridiculous. Sir John Herschel. The unknown is not necessarily the unknowable. Bishop Philip Brooks. I know immortality from the look in a loved one's eyes at death, bright, loving, appealing. He told me he had entered a brighter life. Ellen Rice Robbins, quoted by Thompson, Proofs of Life After Death. I am established in my hope of future happiness by the Spirit of God, as certain as Euclid's demonstrations. Philippe de Mornay, Worlds to Come. Helen Keller, deaf, dumb, and blind, signaled to Bishop Brooks, I have always known God in my thoughts, but I did not know its name. John Herman Randall, Life of Reality. Each soul is the word of immortality, no one can acquire or grow for another. Walt Whitman, Complete Works. Spiritual knowledge must be sought in the Spirit of God. Jacob Biman. By fear nothing is gained, everything is lost. Deity is the firmest, surest. Ralph Waldo Trine, In Tune with the Infinite to Eternity. The Law. Many a thinker feels nature represents the thoughts of a dominating mind, partially incarnate in all. Sir Oliver Lodge. Matter and force are mere names for forms of consciousness. The material world is known only as the ideal world. Our knowledge of the soul is more intimate than of the body. Huxley. The greatest reality is mind, greater than all wonders is the intellect that apprehends. Our most direct knowledge is our thoughts and feelings, only through mind do we reach the external world. George Croswell Cressy, Ph.D. The essential man. Our ancestors failed to interpret nature anthropomorphically or mechanically. Matter resolves into a creation of mind. Sir James Jeans, Reed Lecture, 1931, quoted in the Christian Science Monitor. The scientific mind puts life prior to matter, explaining matter only in mind. John Herman Randall, Life of Reality. Matter vanishes as science grasps it. Force is the dynamic element, the soul its essential principle. The universe is an intelligent principle we cannot understand. Flammarion. The universe's creation was an act of thought. Time and space came into being as part of this act. The Creator works outside time and space, as an artist outside his canvas. Sir James Jeans, Reed Lecture, 1931, quoted in the Christian Science Monitor. Wisdom and spirit of the universe. Thou soul, the eternity of thought. William Wordsworth, quoted in the Gypsy Trail. The matter of man's body is a mere appearance. The universe is a dynamism. An intelligent force rules all. The soul cannot be destroyed. Flammarion. How can we know external bodies exist? We know only sensations. It is possible we might have these ideas without bodies. Berkeley, Principles of Human Knowledge. A wonder that any man believes this world could be produced by a concourse of atoms. John Ray. The idea of an object implies sensation, perception, conception. Feeling, perceiving, apprehending is the fundamental fact. Flammarion. I do not deny the existence of things I apprehend. The only thing we deny is what philosophers call matter. Berkeley, Principles of Human Knowledge. Objective realities exist because they affect our consciousness, but we assume too much labeling them real or ideal. Sir James Jeans. The universe is a thought of God. Schiller. Physics omits much essential. The Christian must hold to his intimate knowledge of religious experience. Sir Arthur Eddington, quoted in the Christian Science Monitor. From a chance concourse of atoms comes the voice, I love, I hope, I worship eternal beauty. Molecules do not utter thus. Samuel Crothers, The Endless Life. Let us declare man is essentially spirit. Flammarion. What is mind? No matter. What is matter? Never mind. What is soul? It is immaterial. Who'd imagine how sensation, thought, emotion arise from dead atoms? Things so incongruous cannot come. John Page Hobbs, The Future Life. It is inconsistent with science not to believe in a mind behind a universe. A purposeful creation implies a mind. Edwin B. Frost, Astronomer. Nothing in science opposes immortality. James D. Dana. The sufferings and griefs of life broke my faith in science. I found peace in God. M. Hegard, Professor of Philosophy, University of Copenhagen. The conservation of energy. No force is lost applies to mental or spiritual energy. George Croswell Cressy, The Essential Man. Whatever fundamentally exists is independent of time. It cannot go out of existence. Sir Oliver Lodge, Life and Matter. Nature never wastes, the essence remains. Benny. I believe in the soul's continuation because science proves nothing can be annihilated. Professor H. L. Hartzog. Nature allows no atom to elude its grasp. In mind, no thought or feeling perishes. David Thomas. The soul participates in the permanency of physical forces. Nothing is lost in nature, least of all the soul. L. Backel, quoted by Thompson, Proofs of Life After Death. The universe is a symbol of God, man himself a symbol, preaching a gospel of freedom. Carlyle. Matter and mind are immortal, eternal, as immortal as God himself. Henry Byrouth, Tolerance in Religion. Modern civilization frees people, strewing spiritual opportunity along their path. Willis R. Whitney, Director Research Lab, General Electric Company. To science, chaos means cosmos, cosmos means life, life means man. The essential man is immortal. Dr. H. W. Thomas. Rational life exists outside space and time. Tolstoy, Complete Works, Volume 10. To heaven. The whole earth and stars are for religion's sake. No man has been devout enough, none has thought how divine he himself is. Walt Whitman, Starting from Paumanok. We need more spiritual development, power, character, religion, things unseen. Calvin Coolidge. To the Christian, God is love, and the highest capacity in man is love. Burnett Hillman Streeter, Immortality. Naught is sweeter, stronger, higher, or wider than love. There is no more joyous thing in heaven or earth. Love is born of God and rests only in him. A. Kempis. Life is the diffusion of light from heaven. Confucius, The perfection of souls. Brahmins, the abnegation of self for nirvana. Buddha, the path of peacefulness. Lao Tse, submission to reason. Stoics, love toward God and neighbor. Christ. Tolstoy. Perfect love makes God and the soul one. Hilton. When thoughts dwell on higher things, immortality seems self-evident. Only when groveling in sordid matters do we lose faith. George Croswell Cressy, Ph.D., The Essential Man. News comes every hour of a world of absolute life, beauty, truth, beyond time and space. Evelyn Underhill, Mysticism. I feel on the margin of a life unknown, very near, almost touching it. Richard Jeffries. You will never enjoy the universe till the sea flows in your veins, you are clothed with heavens, crowned with stars, and perceive yourself sole heir of the world. Traherne, quoted by James Henry Tuckwell. The mind is never right but when at peace within itself, the soul is in heaven when purged of corruptions. Seneca. This is the world for the moral sense, here or nowhere we find rightness. Caroline Haddon, the larger life. My prayer was answered, I was born again at 50. If God is immortal, I am too. Philip Cabot, the sense of immortality. The truest end of life is to know the life that never ends. William Penn. At bodily death, the soul experiences no great change. Consciousness adjusts to new conditions. Reverend R. J. Campbell, pastor of the City Temple, London. This life and the next are one. The man who serves God today will not be out of a job tomorrow. Philip Cabot, the sense of immortality. Weariness and boredom belong to unreality. In reality, there is no such thing. Margaret Prescott Montague, 20 minutes of reality. We are immersed in beauty, but our eyes have no clear vision. Emerson. The soul perceives the relishes of sensual and intellectual perfections. The nobler the soul, the greater its perceptions. Jeremy Taylor. Our souls pierce the impurity of flesh, beholding the highest heaven, bringing knowledge of enduring glory and joy. Sir Walter Raleigh. The good predominates, ready for our service if we accept it. Calvin Coolidge. The Memphite drama, 8,000 years ago, said, God decrees death to him who does what is hated, and life to him who does what is loved. Professor James H. Breasted, quoted in the Chicago Tribune, February 1, 1933. A holy man is a happy man. Happiness is inseparable from holiness. Octavius Winslow, M.A., Midnight Harmonies. 'Tis heaven alone that is given away, 'tis only God may be had for the asking. Lowell. Humanity is on the threshold of a life so high it will make a new heaven and earth. Lillian Whiting, the world beautiful. Eternal life is a present possession, not a future continuity. Reverend A.C. Dixon. My creed is the science of God, my gospel is the love of all, my heaven is the life in God, accessible to all. James Freeman Clarke. The life of God surrounds us like an atmosphere, the infinite reservoir of peace, joy, and energy. Lillian Whiting, the world beautiful. Heaven is the home of God as much as of man. No heaven until we rise out of folly, selfishness, sensuality. Reverend Charles Gordon Ames, D.D. An evil action attaches man to a sorrow. Oriental proverb. The life of man is capable of a heavenliness heaven alone can complete. Bishop Philip Brooks. Spiritual vision gives life earnestness and joy. We exist by the attempt to return to our perfection in God. George Santayana, Platonic love. Each soul is potentially divine, the goal is to manifest this divinity. Swami Vivekananda. With increasing development, one enters the infinite riches of the universe. No work begun shall pause for death. Lillian Whiting, the world beautiful. It is God in us that checks mere petition. I am, and by me this world stands. All mine are thine. Emerson. When the mind is at rest, softened by universal love, we may feel God within us. Kirkham, Outdoor Philosophy. The more spiritually minded, the more thou livest a life worthy of thy soul. Dr. Worthington. We do not need to die to know the heaven of perfect love. Reverend Daniel Steele, quoted by S. A. Perry. There is nothing true but heaven. More the confidence that God restoreth the soul is not relegated to after death. It is today, this moment, in peace, joy, and love. Lillian Whiting, the world beautiful. Think of spiritual results, as earth swims through the heavens, every effect passes into spiritual results. Walt Whitman. The kingdom of heaven is at hand. Christ Jesus. Published by Sanctuary Publications, Eagle River, Wisconsin.